simple-minded and the uninformed can be easily led astray. And those that cannot connect the dots, hey, look the other way. People believe what they want to believe when it makes no sense at all.
Meeting to order, 9 o'clock. Keith's going to open us with prayer, and then we'll have the pledge of allegiance. If everyone would rise.
Father in heaven, we thank you for this day. We thank you, Lord, for our commissioners that direct the business of our county. We pray that you give them wisdom and guidance this day, and that they would have your presence in each vote. We thank you, Lord God, for each person in attendance, and we pray that you would just guide our words, our thoughts, and may your name be glorified in our county. We pray this in the precious name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be seated. All right, approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add senior citizen centers finances to the discussion items. So that can be item G under discussion items.
No objections, we'll add that.
Mr. Chairman, if I might just suggest, I don't want to fuss about it, but if you can maybe make the report in your manager report instead, and instead of making an addition to the agenda, I don't want to have a situation where they're complaining they weren't permitted an opportunity to attend and listen to deliberations of the board with respect to that item. Any amendments need to be made 72 hours in advance of the commission meeting, so pursuant to OMA. So I mean, if we can, I know that we're not looking for any action to be taken, but if maybe we can just have a discussion of that in the context of the county manager report, that might be just better for the purpose of the.
I will defer to legal counsel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda for today.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we've got approval of minutes for May 21st special business meeting, but I'm not seeing any minutes in here.
I don't have any minutes either, so can we table those till next meeting?
What was that meeting?
The special commission meeting on the, I don't know what it was about. I called in.
It was finance.
That
We don't have the minutes.
we'll table that and we'll get those minutes for you.
Move to table the minutes till next regular meeting.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Table rules. All right, come to public comment. During this portion, we have comment from the public. Speak about any issue you'd like to speak of. Everybody has 3 minutes. If you have any comment, back here in the back.
How you doing? I'm Jody Fales. I talked with the director and stuff like that. I'm a retired disabled vet, 24 years, 3 different branches, 8 different jobs. I'm in the process of going through the Air National Guard, Army National Guard, and Reserve units, trying to do a cooperative agreement with the Forest Service on crusher operations for roadways for our county. And I've got a few contacts, a colonel in Albuquerque and then a reserve unit in Georgia, looking at all of our Red Horse units and seeing where we can come up with a crusher and shaker and screen and stuff, so we can start processing some of this material that we need for our roadways and projects. So I'm in the process of doing that.
Met with Jody 2 weeks ago, was it, Jody?
Yes, sir.
We met, and he's going to keep me informed of that, and we'll keep the board, the commission aware of the progress. Thank you.
Chairman, members of the commission, Howard Hutchinson. At the last meeting, I had requested that we put the San Francisco Water Commission Joint Powers Agreement on the agenda. Spoke with the county manager, having not seen it on the agenda for this time, and I think it would be best if we had that discussion at the July meeting. He indicated that we may not have as much on the agenda for that point. And the Village of Reserve is one of the co-signers on the Joint Powers Agreement, and we need to get that up and running again, in that we are approaching the need for development of a business plan for the CAP entity, and we need to be fully engaged in that process. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I suggested to Howard that we have an 8:30 a.m. work session, so we have a little roundtable discussion with the parties involved. Would that be okay?
On the scenic rivers?
What's that?
On the scenic rivers or on?
No. This is the joint powers agreement with the soil and water, the village, and the county. So if you guys would pencil that in, if that's okay with you, to have an 8:30 a.m. work session. And Hilda, would that be okay with you too? All right.
Mr. Chairman, if I might ask Mr. Hutchison just to give a brief, just to disclose why this business meeting coming up for the CAP entity and why it's very important that the village and some of the entities here in our county are involved in this decision process. Would you mind just elaborating a little bit, Howard, if that's okay with you?
Mr. Chairman, at our last couple of meetings of the CAP entity, we have been discussing putting a business plan into place. We have a summary presented to us. I was very disappointed in that summary. We need to make sure that we are developing a business plan that accommodates the various projects and the operation and maintenance of those projects on into the future. We have, when we developed the Joint Powers Agreement for the San Francisco Water Commission, we put an outline in that. It's very broad to look at how we would operate in the San Francisco Basin in developing and utilizing that water for users in the basin. So it's really important that we ensure that outline of a business plan is included in the CAP entity's business plan, and that we have direct input as the village, the county, and the district. And I would also encourage the village to consider becoming a member on the board of the CAP entity. I think the future of water in this region is very important, and I think that an additional 4,000 acre-feet for this basin would be economically very beneficial. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Stand for any questions.
Mr. Chairman, San Bustamante with Keeney, Middle Frisco Ditch. First of all, I'd like to thank you folks for all the support you gave us on the infiltration gallery and being our fiscal agent for that project. Today I'm here to ask for a little bit more help. We've got some dike that goes into our dam that's being eaten out by the last flood, and I'm afraid that this monsoon coming up and getting more floods, and it's just going to continue to do that and wash around our system again. And so I'd like to see if it's possible to have Mr. Anderson with the dozer go down there and push up, fill in the dam or the dike where it's been washed away so that we don't lose it. That's my question to you. And I know you can't take action today, but I'd like for you to consider it. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, no other comments, we'll go to the agenda. Department and agency reports. Several here from the Forest Service.
Yes. So good morning, my name is Emily Irwin. I'm the district ranger on the Kamado Ranger District. I'm currently have a fire on the district, the Elk Fire. So I asked if the incident management team assigned would come over and give a real brief update on the status of the fire. Available if you had any pressing questions, and so I'm going to defer my 2 or 3 minutes to them.
Good morning. Mark Bernal, Incident Commander Trainee for IMT3. Today I also have Sherman Chavez, Fire Information for Team 3, and Brett Buffingen, Fire Liaison for. So just a real brief update on the Elk Fire. The fire is currently 1,051 acres, 48% contained. Our things are looking very well on the fire. We did do some prep work up and around on Magus Mountain, on the tower and infrastructure up there, so that's looking real good for a secondary thing. But the fire itself, crews have been getting in there, working the northern perimeter. We did do some PSD missions. That's the plastic sphere dispenser where we drop the special permelium permanganate balls out of the helicopter, and of course it starts little spot fires in there, which also keeps firefighters from, having to walk that steep, treacherous ground. We have done burnout operations along the road system, trying to keep it out of private property. There was some private property involved, but no structures threatened, nothing like that. It was just burning across, having to use the favorable conditions. On the south end, fire's looking really good also. There are some areas where it's running into more sparse fuels and not conducive to burning. We are getting ready to complete burnout operations, hopefully. And with that, we're estimating weather conditions coming in to where it could have more higher fire behavior. So we want to try and wrap things up and button things up and tidy things in before that happens. It'll get tested. We will be here. We do have resources on scene to assess it if necessary. But just wanted to say everything's looking good, and thank you. Is there any questions?
What's the name of that fire?
The Elk Fire.
Elk?
Elk.
Elk Fire.
Yes, sir. It will be available for here for a little bit. Like we were saying, there's maps up here, and there's also our information sheet here if you want further information. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Managers report, or any other else? Manager.
Okay, the Pytown landfill, in order to close that, we're gonna have to buy 10 acres from the BLM, and that's gonna cost us $100. But we're trying to get that done and closed, and the BLM came up with that in order to make that closure, that we're gonna have to own that much more property there, and they're willing to part with that. It's something we're working through, but finally that's gonna get done. As you know, next week is the general meetings for the Association of Counties that will be held in Clovis, New Mexico, and I think all of our departments are going to be represented there. We have a wildlife agreement. It's in our it's in our budget. It's not in our action items to sign, but I will let Adrian explain how we're going to handle that as long, because it's in the budget. It's something that Cliff can sign and we can approve of in July.
Mr. Chairman, this is budgeted, it's something that we do every year and all counties do every year. My suggestion would be that since it's already budgeted, unless the commission objects, that you sign and then we will ratify that as a board at the next commission. Because it does have to be in now.
Wildlife Services?
Wildlife Services, yep. It's our standard contract that we do every year.
Just for clarification, the contract did not make it to the county, so we put it on the agenda this time. This was the fault of the county. Stephen Gomez brought the contract by today. After I had a phone conversation with him yesterday, it was yesterday, wanting to know if we had signed the contract yet. I told him we didn't have it. We can't find it, we don't have it, so he made sure we got it. And it expires the end of this month.
So we have a lot of things on our schedule, so just to hit the highlights. In July, we'll be setting up our first ICIP meeting, and that will have to be advertised because all three of you should be involved in that process. And we will get with Priscilla and I'll email each of you and see if we can get a date that works for everybody. We want to have that pre-meeting in July so that we can, in August, set up the meeting to finalize the ICIP process, to have it turned in September. So be thinking of July dates that work best for each of you. Senior Citizen Centers, I went and to a meeting with with Ms. McCoy, who is the department chair for the state for aging, and I'm missing the other part, but we discussed, we had AAA there, we had the State Department there, and then all the local. They were they want to keep the doors open in Catron County as well. I told them where our position was, and their debt problems. Savannah was there, represented herself very well. They're looking into ways to get some money to pay for that. They want to use the county as the fiscal agent to pay off the bills. This does not mean we're taking it over. They're going to get the money to us. The bills will come to us and we'll pay it off through the regular process. But this is not, because I know of concerns, this does not commit us to say now we're liable for them. But I just wanted to let you guys know that, and if you had anything to say about that, you might let me know. Other than that, as Howard brought up, we'll try to have our 8:30 a.m. work session next in July before the next meeting, and hopefully we can come up with agreement that represents the county and the village and the soil and water appropriately. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Bill, all of the centers, all three of the senior centers are represented in the meeting there.
Yes, they were.
Did they give a good disclosure to the folks there at AAA and Mrs. McCoy concerning, what they accomplished?
They did the local ladies did a very good job of representing their centers, and actually there were some things that I found out that I didn't know, because they don't right now. I felt like I know it's been that they have to raise money to keep the doors open, and they've set a goal of so much money. They're not. That really is not supposed to be built in the budget. And I was under the assumption that it was. and they obviously need it, but it's supposed to be able to run without it. The big problem is they cannot pay off debts that have been incurred under the system where they're raising money based upon units that are accumulated through service. There's no way to make extra money to pay off what they've done. The State Department is trying very hard to come up with some funding to help alleviate that debt so we keep the doors open. Savannah has informed me that they're actually receiving a percentage cut across the state that we're going to receive, that our senior centers are going to receive as well. So it's touch and go. And there's another agreement in there for you to look at that they want me to sign that I won't sign without your approval, dealing with the budget, but that's there for you.
Okay. Move on to the finance report.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Yeah, I got a little discussion. I didn't put this in your packet because it was kind of a last minute had to do a last minute search here, get my figures together. But I'll start at the bottom of the recap report. The $30,000 that we had transferred to Firewise that make the, so the line item wouldn't be in the red, I would like to have permission to move it back to the general fund.
30,000?
30,000. Firewise did receive their SRS money. They got $221,277 this year. And then as you go up, the correction fee is running in the red. And I ran a report this morning, and they're about 14,000 in the red. I'd like permission to move 20,000 down to the correction line. As you know, the state does not like us to have negative balances.
This is the one from the sheriff's office, right?
Correct.
Schedule transfer every month.
Yeah, we're gonna, so that'll be a total of 80,000 for this fiscal year that we've transferred money into the correction line, correction fees.
How much was that, 20,000?
20,000 should cover us to the end of the fiscal year. The next line item is the electronic monitors. I understand this program is deceasing, but they're still got a negative balance of $192.75, and I'd like permission to transfer money down to that and balance it out.
That's the DWI.
Yes.
Yeah,
The individuals that were wearing the ankle bracelets, I understand, were supposed to be paying for them.
correct.
Which, I don't know why we thought they would pay for them.
I don't know, we only had one pay for it. So, yeah, so they're being sent back, but, yeah, we need to cover that line item.
Mr. Chairman, Connie, you're just
Sure.
going to transfer $192.75, or what would you be transferring to that electronic monitoring line item?
That'd be coming out of the general fund,
But how much?
just enough to cover it, just balance it out, yeah. So we'll see, that'll be a zero balance. And so the top on the farm and range, I called Erica Cummings from DFA Monday, and the federal government has not sent the state any money, so we don't know when that money will be coming in. So I need to transfer money to balance that out for the year. And then I have a question on that. Is that money that we give to the San Francisco soil and water, that $2,000, it makes farm and range run in the red every year because we don't get enough money from the farm and range, or the Tyler
The
grazing. Yes, so,
And that's kind of, it's anywhere from 17 to 20,000 that we get every year.
correct.
Now, let's see if I can find that now. I did ask BLM what they thought we might be getting this year. And I believe they thought we might be getting close to 20,000.
Okay.
I still have a lot of questions on their formula.
Yeah, according to, I was talking to Linda, she heard that they wanted to raise the farm and range fee to APHIS. And she told them no, because we didn't have the money. A couple years ago, we had to transfer money into this line item too, so I just want direction on what to do here.
We can't do anything without a resolution, so we can't know yet. So how do we do this? We'll have to have a special meeting, because we don't have a resolution to transfer the money, so we can't do anything today.
Yeah, we need a budget adjustment.
We need a budget adjustment.
I thought that blanket one that you guys did last month would cover this. No? Okay.
Wouldn't it?
Can I see it? I mean,
We did a resolution for blanket changes to make adjustments in the budget to even it out for the year.
Yeah, and even
In
money,
May.
it was budget adjustments and money transfer blanket resolutions to the,
That's right.
yeah.
that might cover it.
We did that on the
Yeah.
21st, so I thought that would cover it.
Mr. Green, it likely does. Let me go ahead, if we can table this, so I can look at the, well, I guess.
Well, it doesn't really have to be
There's
tabled
no
if it's
action to be
okay.
taken. Yeah, let me go ahead.
She just wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, let me go ahead and
Yeah.
look, and I'll get with the commission on that.
Okay.
So,
Before you're done with your report, can you get with Stacy or with Ian on the correction fee to make sure they don't have something else coming through? To make sure that the 20,000 does cover it? It seems like every time we turn around, we're putting more money in there, when it would make more sense if we asked them, what do you expect between now and the 1st of July?
they don't expect anything.
Okay, you've already talked to them about it?
I've
Okay.
talked to them and, made suggestions, but this is something you commissioners, I suggest, is have them come in and make a special report on it. I'm just a treasurer, and it's just like, I really don't have authority to go in there and say, you've got to do this. So my advice is have them come in and clarify the corrections. Yeah, because we spent almost $77,000, and they started in negative last year, so, no.
Vicki?
Also on that same note, I need to know how to handle it because I believe the amount last year was $18,500, and they've already billed us $23,000, and I just got another bill that I'm holding off on until I can find out what we need to do about it, because they're billing us for more than what
Who is billing?
Oh, Farm and Range.
Farm and Range.
Yeah. See, Farm and Range, APHIS has billed us, and that must be what Linda was talking about when I came up there.
Right.
You guys already got a bill for 20?
He did a budget request for an increase, and we didn't give him the increase, so
Yeah,
we don't have to give him that check until we sign the contract, so.
Okay.
And we don't have to give them more than what we've already agreed.
No.
Right,
Has
and
anybody
this is off this fiscal year, not next fiscal. I mean, it was only $18,500, I believe is what we got, and they're already up to $23,000 that's been paid to them. And like I said, I just got another invoice, and I'm sitting on
Can you email me
it.
that, or I'll get a copy from you later?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you're taking that San Francisco Soil and Water out of the Tyler Grazing Farm and Range, so that's an extra $2,000. So with the APHIS bill and this donation you give,
Because they don't bill us, they get what we give them. If we only agree to 15,000, they would only get 15,000, correct?
That's my.
So for Rudy to even be billing us for 20,000,
They
it's pretty
send us, they
presumptuous on
send,
his
we've
part.
had four invoices so far, I think, and it's total 23,000 there.
Yeah, they usually send us invoices.
Yeah.
I think we need to look at how they're billing us.
Well, I will say, if they have if they're doing a specific service, they might invoice, but unless somebody has requested a service, they can't just go out and provide a service and then invoice us. I mean, for instance, if there's a wildlife problem that the county specifically requests, then that's a different matter, but I don't believe that's happened as far as I know.
I guess maybe figuring out their billing process, because as far as I understand, any of the ag producers that have a predator problem can call wildlife services and they'll come help with bears and mountain lions and coyotes, but I assumed that was under the money that we gave them.
Right. The county should not be paying wildlife services for if somebody made one of those calls.
So they shouldn't be billing us at all.
That's my understanding.
That's my understanding too.
Right, they're already getting a set amount.
That's right, they're getting a set amount.
So the
18,000.
question again is, why are they sending an invoice that's already 23,000 for this year if we only gave them 17 last year? Unless I'm
Researching
not-
it out last year, what we did was the amount that they allotted, we split that into 4 equal payments and did it that way. But this year, it's just off the wall. One of them was like $8,000 and something dollars, and the other one's like $7,000. This last one I got is $2,000, but like I said, we're already 23, and I just thought, no, I'm not paying this.
I think Rudy's he's the acting Alan May since Alan retired. I begged Alan to not retire, but he didn't.
So that's what we're looking here with Farm and Range. You're saying we gave them 17,000 last year, but the bill was 18. I don't understand.
Okay, so Farm and Range, we got $18,379.64. So our disbursement with the $2,000 we gave the San Francisco Soil and Water was $18,461.98, which we were over $82.34 this year. I think it's been about 4 or 5 years ago, we ended up having to transfer like $10,000 in there to cover this Farm and Range because it was running short like it is again. We just, they give us so much money, but then they invoice us for over what they give us. So with the $2,000 from the San Francisco Soil and Water, which ends up a little higher, so.
Which totally doesn't make any sense to me because we only budget so much for that line item. So if we tell Wildlife Services we're only going to give you 15,000 and we're going to give San Francisco 2,000, that's $17,000 and that should be it. There should be no other invoices paid out at all. So I'm not understanding how this is happening.
I guess because prior administration, they got the invoices and they just paid the invoices and nobody's ever questioned it. So this year with Becky and I working on this, we're starting to question things. Why are they being done this way? Is this legal? So this is one of the things that have,
That's the other.
Just let me get with Becky, I'll write a letter to him, I'll copy it to you guys, and we'll see what their response is, but I don't think we should pay more than what we allocate.
And I think Rudy knows that. So he shouldn't be invoicing at all, because I think the invoices are coming from Stephen's boss and Oscar's.
Okay, well, we'll take care of it.
And I would also like some clarification on the $2,000. I want to make sure that that's okay to do because since it's money that's being donated to us, can we turn around and donate it to?
That's part of the Taylor Grazing Act and help soil and water districts
We
with
can't do that,
projects
okay.
for
I
individuals.
just wanted to make sure on that because I wasn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let's go to the electronic monitoring. I have a question.
sure,
We've got beginning fiscal balance. We're showing we're in the hole to start with.
correct,
Is that right? Somebody paid us $200 to wear the thing.
yes.
We put $5,000 in there from the DWI program.
No, from the indigent fund. It was agreed to take it out of the indigent fund to cover these monitors.
So does the DWI coordinator have the resources within her budget that comes from the state, since it's one of her programs, that they can't take it out of their budget and not out of the general fund?
I don't know. I didn't ask to talk to her. I just know, she just told me that the program was ending and she was returning the monitors. I don't know if she's going to get money back from the monitors or not. I didn't ask her.
Linda?
I had a question for her about that, and she told me that the DWI program would not and could not reimburse those funds. I believe that that is when our former county manager and DWI got together and brought the money in out of the indigent fund that was supposed to be paid by the individuals getting the monitors.
All that aside, we're in the hole there, huh?
Yeah.
And the correction fee, some of that could possibly be paid out of indigent fund if it's medical instead of general fund.
You know, Mr. Chairman, we'd have to refer back to the IHC, the Indigent Healthcare Ordinance this board adopted regarding the permissible expenditures from the fund. I'm not sure that without having a specific individual to whom that's tied, I'm not sure that we can make blanket purchases with indigent fund monies in light of our IHC ordinance. So I share the concern.
Yeah. Some of the prisoners that have mental health issues, we are taking money out of the indigent fund and cover their.
As we should be.
All right, so the question is, in the end, we've got a quarterly report that's got to be done when?
End of June.
And we can't be showing that we're in the hole in these funds. So if that blanket resolution won't work,
Well, I think we set it up to work that way.
Yeah.
She's just reporting this to you, so you know, in the interest of being
we're going to have
transparent.
a special meeting.
We don't if the blanket resolution covers
So,
it.
Mr. Chairman, I did have an opportunity to review the blanket resolutions, and it specifically incorporates the attached schedule of budget adjustments. And so if it's included,
it will not.
So if it's included within those adjustments that are included as part of that resolution that was approved by the board, then it would. But if it's not included as part of those adjustments, then I don't think we get to revise this and then slip that behind it and say, here we have a blanket resolution. It says, as stated on the attached schedule of budget adjustments. I mean, so I think it would, and I just hate saying that because I understand the administrative burden it places upon us, but that said, I mean, we want to make sure we get it done right, we don't have it kicked back to us, and I think for that reason, you know, even if it's a telephonic meeting, just to simply approve that budget adjustment transfer, we could do that, but it needs to be noticed, we need to say what we're going to do and
Okay.
adjust it. I'm sorry.
If that's the way it is, then we'll try to schedule a short meeting at the last week of June, just in case there's something else that comes up.
Mr. Green, I think you definitely want to look in here though and make sure it's not included within there before we do that. Yeah, there's two resolutions here and there's two different.
If it's included, we're fine.
Yeah, if it's included, we're fine, so.
Okay. Well, we will, I'll look at that with you later.
Yeah, sounds
just to make sure.
Sounds good, thank you.
And that might be a good idea, Bill, because I'm sure we're going to have a bunch of budget adjustments for all the departments, so we might as well just try to get them all ready and put it in one big package for the commission team. I should be turned in, yeah. You guys, commissioners, did you get the treasurer's report?
No.
Yes.
For the bank, bank?
Yes, it's in
See
there.
that?
The treasurer's, yeah, of the bank reconciliation.
I see the colors.
Okay. Is there any questions on that?
The money that was in a CD for, I think, Glenwood Fire Department and the Dattle Fire Department, you closed out those CDs, what did you do with that money?
That money is in their accounts. It was always in their accounts. So it was, how can I explain this? Even if the money is in CDs or over here in the bank savings or anything, it's always reported in their carryover balances. So it's always been there for them.
Okay, and so how was that reported to state fire marshal, because you're not supposed to invest in fire departments? But I know that was done years ago.
Right, and I didn't know about this until this year, so it was reported as carryover.
Did you itemize it out that this was?
They don't ask for an itemization, they
Okay.
just ask for a lump sum.
Okay, darn it, I was hoping I could use that for something else.
Just wanted to get part of that 1% interest rate.
Got any questions? Okay, I'm done.
Move to approve the financial report as presented.
I'll second that.
Got a motion and a second to approve the finance report as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, presentations. Got an audit presentation.
Mr. Stone, you're up. Where do you want to go? Wherever you want to be. One in the hall then. I'll just do it.
Good morning, Commissioner. Okay, first and most important, you guys had an unmodified opinion on the financial statements that are presented in this audit report. That's as high an opinion as you can get. It means that in our opinion, the financial statements are fairly stable, okay? In addition, because you guys received more than $750,000 in federal funding, we're required to do special tests on certain of those federal expenditures and express an opinion one way or another. You also have an unmodified opinion on that. So that again is as good as it gets. There are a few comments that we have in the back. I don't know if you guys want me to address them individually or want to. I don't know that. I don't. It goes either way. Some people want me to. Some people do not want to take the time. They're in there. They've been reported. One of them is what she's trying to cure right now with the budget adjustments. But other than that, basically, we got a nice clean audit report.
Were there any department heads here that had any questions about the audit? Because I know that when the audit report was submitted to the commission, the departments had not had a chance to look at it and to answer some of the issues that were brought up within the departments.
I've never seen it.
So if the assessor has anything that's questionable, she didn't even have the chance to respond to that.
I don't know that the assessor had anything questionable, but
I don't think you
we
did.
had an exit conference prior to us ever issuing that report. It's really not my job to determine who's supposed to be at that conference. But I only have one requirement, and that's that one of the commissioners has to be there, okay? Other than that, I don't have any. Go ahead.
I do have a question on the farm and range. I noticed that there was something in there that, about,
Budget over.
is that what it was, the budget over?
We extended.
I thought it was something, so that's gonna happen again.
No,
that-
it won't.
No,
No, because we're going to take care
because
of it.
we're fixing it.
It's, state law says that no matter if you have money in there or not, you can't spend more than you budgeted. Like, even if Farm and Range had $100,000 in there, but you only budgeted to spend 20, if you spend 21,000, that's a budget, that's an over expenditure of your budgetary authority, and that's the fine. That's all it is. It's not saying that you don't do or do not have cash. It is saying that you have to increase the budget if you want to spend more than what your original budget was. That's all this is saying.
Right, but if this fiscal year, we've not been audited on yet. It was 18,500 or whatever, we're at 23,000, so it's the same issue, correct?
It will not be the same issue if she increases the budget.
Because we're adding
That's why
money.
we're adding money to, that's what we're doing, we're
Okay.
increasing the budget.
So, yeah, so that'd be one thing you need to do before those
It's
last.
how the budget ends.
Yeah.
You can make adjustments during the year, which makes it okay.
And as far as the assessor goes,
No, I'm just saying, I had never seen it, so I didn't know if there was anything or not.
I don't think that, hi, how are you? I don't think there's anything here that's related to you because most of this is financial. The only thing would be is if there were some travel expenditures that were not properly approved or something like that. But we don't list that by department, we just do it by, from the agency as a whole.
And accounts payable? Is there something with accounts payable regarding POs or something like that?
Yes. It was with, not necessarily POs, it was more with the credit cards. The credit cards, we had some instances where credit cards were used, but when they were turned in for payment, there weren't receipts with them. And that was the comment.
So you had findings.
Yes, sir.
7 of them. How many of those were repeated? I'm sorry, I was gonna bring things like that.
No problem.
And I didn't.
Bear with me just a minute. 5 of them. 5 of the comments were repeat. The tax roll reconciliation, in all honesty, there's not anything you can really do about. There maybe Bernalillo County may be complying, and maybe Doñana County. The state auditor, this is just a schedule that the state auditor wants. It's not a requirement it's not a legal requirement, it's just in his administrative code requirement. It says that he wants a schedule in the audit that breaks down the last 10 years of taxes by the individual taxing unit and saying what they build, what they receive, what's available. That's a very complicated process to do, and I have talked to Triadic about it and stuff like that, but we really just aren't able to produce this situation. Every county that I have has exactly the same problem, to be honest with you. So that's really not anything of significance. The other ones were the maintenance of fixed asset records. When the county last year, in all honesty, underwent some significant changes in the accounting office, and they hadn't had a chance to reconcile their capital outlay and get it into the fixed asset records. We did that when we were here and got it done. There was nothing wrong with the financial statements, but it was just a matter of time, in essence, really. The third one we talked about, which is the credit card records. The next one is, by way of explanation, you'll never see any kind of accounting system anywhere in the world except account that has a split accounting system. Counties in New Mexico do because the treasurer is statutorily required to collect, and the county manager pays the bills. So you have to put the two together to get a full financial report. Because if you look at Connie's report for what's been spent, it may not include checks that haven't cleared yet that she has. It's just going to be what's cleared the bank. The stuff that's been written is going to be over here. So it requires that we put these two together. The comment here is that Connie's cash balance was off from what the general ledger balances were by $10,000. It's not a lot of money compared to what's going on, but what we need, the only way to correct that is for these two people to get, or whoever you guys designate, these two people to get together and work on it to make sure that what she's got in cash is what we're showing in the general ledger on a monthly basis. That's what we're saying.
we have taken steps to make sure that's happening.
Yeah, I should I need to make one thing pretty clear, because, you know, it's June already, and before we left, we went over these comments with staff, and then we had an exit conference with the commissioner, and then we filed the report prior to the December 1st deadline. It took a long time for the state auditor to process it, there's no doubt about that. What happened in his office is he was running for state auditor, and when he didn't get elected, everything ground to a halt at the state auditor's office until the new guy came in. So the process was long for everybody. Every audit I had was held up for a significant period of time this last year. I just want to make it clear that this was done timely. There was no, the state auditor puts a December 1st deadline on it, and it was in his office prior to it. So it seems like it's late here, and it is late, but these discussions had been had with staff prior to us ever leaving. Okay. So the stuff that we're talking about now is probably stuff that's already been addressed one way or another by staff, in all honesty. Okay, the other one was the budgetary non-compliant, well, excuse me. We had some instances where we couldn't find I-9s in the payroll files. An I-9 is a citizenship questionnaire. It's got to be filled out. And the only reason it's really important, in all honesty, is because if the federal government comes in and starts looking, and they have started looking at bigger entities, if they come in and look and you don't have them, they can fine you up to $500 per I-9. And the I-9 is complicated. It requires 2 sets of IDs and everything else. And if you only have 1 set of IDs documented, they can fine you for that. So expenditures in excess of budget authority we've already talked about, and that's it. Basically, that's what I have. But if you notice, there are 3 levels of comment. There are material weaknesses, there are significant deficiencies, and then there's other non-compliance. Every one of these is just another non-compliance issue. It's the lowest level. Okay? And most of it relates to state statute. It's not relating necessarily to the financial statements themselves. The financial statements themselves are good and clean, and we've expressed an unmodified opinion. And currently, I am, the state auditor reviews our work papers once a year, at least one audit. And luckily for me, unluckily for you, or unluckily for both of us, they pick Catron County, okay? So currently, our work papers are being reviewed in Santa Fe by the state auditor's office, but I've already had communications with them, and I don't anticipate any problem. Basically, that's all I've got, guys. I'll stand, as you say, stand for questions if you have any.
To the county, congratulations on that audit report.
Well, I want to thank Mike for the in-depth work they did too, because that they came in and they looked things over really well. I appreciate the time and effort they did.
Well, there's one thing I'd like to point out to the commission. Some of you saw us there, some of you didn't. I don't believe you were a commissioner yet at that time, but we come in with a crew. It's not just me. We come in with a crew of 4 or 5 people. I think we have 5 up here. And we're here for basically a week. And we do our best to not be any more disruptive than we need to, but we're a pain in the behind. There's no doubt about it, you know, particularly to these guys, because you know, we get these guys, and sometimes we'll have 2 or 3 of us lined up asking questions. And I would like to say that they handled it professionally. They got us what we needed as soon as they could, and they did it afterwards. They were not unhappy about being interrupted all the time. And we try to get in and get out, but during that period of time, it's very difficult for them. So, and they handled it very well.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
anybody wants to watch it, they're gonna have to turn their chairs around so they can watch what's going on.
You just stand up and turn your chair around, you'll be facing the,
We've got, now let you turn your back to me. Or I'll let Paul introduce it.
Yes.
hey, would you like an introduction, Paul? I mean, you're just standing there. Everybody, Paul works at Siebel County, but he has worked for the DFA before. He is one of the most respected people in the state regarding budgets, regarding finances, and we appreciate him giving us this little tutorial. We've asked him to come by, and Paul has, you know, I can't tell you enough the respect he gets statewide. So we appreciate him coming in. Paul.
Thank you, Bill. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, members of the community, thanks for coming. My name is Paul Ludy. I'm currently the Finance Director at Siebel County. I've got Wendy Self. She's our Procurement and Risk Manager with me, helping me out. Today I'm going to give a budget presentation on just some 101 reporting requirements and internal controls. So it'll definitely help, you know, with the findings that we did have today. After that, I'm going to pass out some packets, and we're going to set you guys up with a lot of tools, a lot of statutes, you know, reporting requirements, and so forth. And then after that, we can stand for questions. Wendy, next slide. Just a little bit about myself. I've got a master's in business administration, with a focus on management. I've got 11 plus years in local government, working on state agency budgets and local government budgets. 7 of those years was at DFA. I had Catron County assigned to me for 5 years, and I actually contracted with Catron County about 45 years ago for almost 2 years. So I'm familiar with your county and your budget and your funds. Next slide, please. So, budgeting by fund. So all counties, they budget by fund type. You can think of each of the county funds as its own balancing set of accounts. The general fund is an unrestricted fund and accounts for the general purpose revenues and expenditures. And special revenue, capital projects, debt service, fiduciary, proprietary funds are usually restricted to expenditures for specified purposes. The expenditures from these funds are normally restricted by statute, charter provisions, local ordinances, or grant agreements. The proceeds for these funds should not be used for general purpose expenditures. All funds should be reconciled on a monthly basis, and reports should be complete and accurate for management review and approval. Establishing and implementing procedures to authorize, record, process journal entries, correct errors, and approve transactions to the general ledger is essential. If internal controls aren't followed, it may result in audit findings. Audit findings could result in reduced capacity to manage federal and state dollars and result in extra scrutiny by DFA and other state agencies. Next slide, please. So the general fund, it accounts for most of our general purpose resources and expenditures. The general fund revenues and cash balances are mostly non-restricted. This is also the main source to assist other funds if they're not self-sustaining. The main general fund revenue drivers for a county are the property taxes, forest reserve, county gross receipts tax, the PIL, GRT equalization. County gross receipts taxes here in the county are minimal and are averaging by a little less than $14,000 per month this year. Other revenues include fees, investment income, licenses, etc. For the expenditures in a county, the main expenditures are salaries and benefits. Your general fund pays for departments like your commission budget, your manager's budget, sheriff, assessor's office, etc. So also please note that there's a law where an outgoing elected official cannot spend more than 50% of their budget during election years. So it's crucial to track this during those years. Your LGD reserve requirement for the general fund is 3/12 of budgeted expenditures for the year. The DFA database won't allow you to submit a budget if you are projected to dip into those reserves. So the special revenue funds, they account for specific revenue sources that are legally restricted to be expended for a specific purpose and cannot be used for general operations. Most have statutory allowable uses, which we just discussed. So the road fund revenue sources here include forest reserve revenue, gas taxes, co-op agreements, and grants. Uses of these funds are dedicated to salary and benefits and upkeep of your county roads. There's an LGD reserve requirement for this fund as well, and it's 1/12 of your budgeted expenditures. And it must be maintained as well, or it's going to result in monthly reporting to DFA. The Farm and Range Fund receives revenues from the Federal Tailored Grazing Act. This money is distributed by the U.S. government and distributed by 2 grazing districts within the United States. It's used to benefit the county in the conservation of soil and water, the control of rodents and predatory animals, the extermination of poisonous, noxious weeds, the construction of dipping vats, etc. So the Indigent Fund receives a dedicated GRT revenue from the state. Uses of these funds are to help with qualifying low-income persons with indigent burial, hospital claims, and Medicaid support. The fire departments receive their funding by applying to the Public Regulation Commission at the State Fire Marshal Office for the State Fire Marshal allotment. The lower the risk rating of the fire department, the more funding that fire department can receive. Other revenues come from grants. This money is dedicated for operational expenditures, structures, fire vehicles, and equipment of that fire department. And it's really important to track these balances because, yes, you need to get carryover approval and you have to get approval by the state. So the EMS fund, they receive their revenues from the Department of Health. This too must be applied for by each EMS station. This money is dedicated for use on operational expenditures, structures, fire vehicles, and equipment of that EMS station. It's imperative that these cash balances also remain reconciled because the cash balances are tracked by the state as well. And here too, you got to get carryover approval from DOH. The DWI grant program receives money from state distribution, which is collected through liquor taxes, and then a portion is sent to each county for funding the DWI programs in the state. Grants are also available. The Clerk's Equipment Fee Fund receives revenues by charging fees, and this in return is used to support the functions of the clerk's office. The LEPF Fund, they receive their funding from DFA. Applications must be submitted and carryover amounts must be approved by DFA as well. So this funding, it can only be carried over 1 year, so it's highly encouraged that you spend it that year that you receive that distribution. It can be used for equipment, advanced training, vehicles, uniforms, and other equipment like that, but it can't be used for administrative costs. The reappraisal fund, it receives their revenues from a 1% collection fee on property taxes collected by the county. The fund can be used to pay 50% of salaries and benefits. It can be used for tools, supplies, training, professional services, vehicle expenses that occur in the assessor's office. The correction fees are used only for the county jailer or juvenile detention officer training, for the construction planning, construction, maintenance, and operation of a county detention facility, a jail, a juvenile detention facility, and similar expenditures. And the Safety Net Care Pool Fund helps pay the medical costs of county inmates. The County Fairgrounds Fund uses grants and general funds when applicable. And as for the last four here, it does not appear to me that they're being used any longer, and we'd have to ask you guys. So I don't know if you guys noticed, but I've geared this up towards Catron County, so when you look at this, you can see the funds off of their recap will be defined by the type of fund that they are. Next slide, please, Wendy. Okay, our capital project funds, they account for bond, legislative, and grant proceeds, or maybe CDBG, and to be used for construction of major capital facility or capital purchases, or other projects. Multi-year projects should be budgeted based on current fiscal year needs. So you don't want to budget the whole, if it's like, you know, you've got a huge grant, you want to budget it for in the phases that you're going to be spending that year. And counties also need to make sure their ICIP is current with the purchases, phases of projects, and priorities that are ready to go. Your debt service funds, they account for the accumulation of revenue sources for the payment of the bond. Now, I just put NMFA up there. Each one of these loans that fire department has here in Catron County, they're actually just budgeting in that fire department fund, correct? And so they're paying the debt from those funds, and that's allowable as well. And proprietary funds, they account for utilities, solid waste authorities, airports, detention centers, and these funds account for internal enterprises that operate in a manner similar to a private business, and they should be self-sustaining. That's sort of the definition of the enterprise fund. They operate off of fees and other funding sources. Catron County's enterprise funds consist of the airport, the solid waste, and the ambulance fund. So here's a few things that go into formulating the budget. So a county needs to develop its revenues in order to determine its fiscal capacity. Then expenditures can be aligned with the projected revenues through the help of the public comment, commissioners, from the managers, and department head input, thus creating an operational budget. You can make sure that your expenditures are in line with your revenues, so you've got a nice balanced budget. Next slide. So we go into fiscal responsibility, and a county should maximize the opportunity to invest in long-term in your community and build for the future of the needs of the community as it grows. A county should also maintain a sensible and viable balanced budget. Counties need to comply with the reporting requirements by the state and federal government and meet all statutory deadlines and regulations. They should follow comprehensive financial management practices, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board statements, generally accepted accounting principles, be transparent, and develop strong internal controls. And also, as the auditor pointed out, some might just be required of the state auditor's office and aren't really in statute. DFA does that as well in their budget memos. So with budget requirements, again, the reserve requirements for a county is 3/12 in their general fund of budgeted expenditures, and the road fund is 1/12 of budgeted expenditures. And these must be maintained throughout the year, or a county will be required to provide monthly reporting to DFA instead of the regularly quarterly reporting. You don't want that. A lot of work. And the county needs to remember, the more expenditures you budget, the higher the reserve requirement becomes. So don't put any grants in there. It's going to inflate your expenditures. A county can require additional or separate reserve fund in addition to LGD's. LGD is the local government division, to their required reserves. We're sort of doing that at Cibola County because you can't dip into that reserve requirement for one thing. If you do, you know, you're just putting more work on yourself, and it gives you a little bit extra operating expenditures or operating cash at year end, and that helps you also to have a higher cash balance when you're starting into the new fiscal year, because a lot of this, I mean, you look at PILT, that comes in now in June. You can't use that all year, you know, so make sure you watch the timing of your revenues and when you're doing your expenditures. And a balanced budget means that the entity must have a positive or zero cash fund balance at the end of the fiscal year. That meets the statutory requirements of 6611. And I've got some packets later on, like I said, that have that information. With the exception of the general fund, that must have that reserve balance. And projected fiscal year-end negative balances are not legally allowed for budget approval. So you submit a budget. Now that they have the new database, it won't let you submit if you're projecting a deficit, so that's good. And transfers between funds must net to zero. It's another new feature on the LGBMS, and that won't let you submit either if it doesn't equal zero. And then please also remember to use recurring revenue to cover recurring expenditures to avoid depleting cash balances. Prior year end cash balances on your fourth quarter report, they become your beginning cash balances on your final budget. So it's a must. If the county needs to adjust their budget, then the county will have to process a bar and submit with their fourth quarter report. And I heard you guys were talking about June 30. We actually got a whole month to reconcile after June 30. So we tried to do a lot of cleanup now in Cibola with our budget adjustments, but we're still going to have some, you know, because we got to close our books. So once we close our books, we know where we're at on June 30th, then we can realign our budget, ask for more budget authority if necessary, and send that in with your fourth quarter as well as your final budget. So the budget reporting deadlines, this is a list of them to meet your statutory reporting requirements with DFA. You can find this information on the DFA website. Make the website one of your favorites if you're doing the reporting. I'm sure Connie has it, and Becky. It's got a lot of information that'll help. Next slide for revenues. So when budgeting revenues, here are some DFA acceptable ways for budgeting main county revenue sources. Does anyone have any questions on any of the allowable uses on any of these distributions? So the only revenues shown here that are for the general fund use are the small counties assistance, PILT, GRT, equalization, property tax, and a portion of the gross receipts tax. I'll go over that later. We went over some of these special revenue fund slides, or in the special revenue fund slides. And please note that the cash balances of the other funds cannot be used or transferred into general fund because it's restricted revenue. Next slide, please. So here's the calculation for Catron County's projected property tax. Valuations were based off of Property Tax Division's certified valuations from last year. The property tax rates come from the certificates of property tax, which are set by DFA. The collection rate, let's see, yeah. And then the collection, I'm sorry, let's get it. The collection rate is a 3-year average of Catron County's collection efforts in the treasurer's office. This is what should be, and then this amount here is what should be budgeted for the next fiscal year, because you can support your projection to DFA when you send this calculation spreadsheet in. It's part of your supporting schedules. Next slide, please. And here you see Catron County's gross receipts tax history. Tracking your GRT history is very important. As you see that big drop in November of 2016, that's a red flag. If you monitor monthly, you can see those anomalies, contact TRD, say what's going on. So that's why you should track. And then you can also look at the trend, like with the gross receipts tax here. The 2019 is the lowest it's been out of these past 4 years. So are you going to want to budget, you know, a 3-year average, or do you want to maybe stay with just what was collected in 2019, because it looks like they're dropping? You might want to just stick with the 1-year set of data to be conservative, you know. And budgeting expenditures and transfers. So debt, this should be budgeted based on your principal and interest from the county's amortization schedules. You'll have those with your bonds and loans, and that's where you should look to properly budget that. There's also a debt service schedule that you'll need to make sure it's matching with your amortization schedules when you're reporting to DFA. Budget any known transfers right away to cover projected deficits. This is another great reason to watch the timing of your revenues, because like the farm and range, that's a great example. We don't get that until later in the year. And if you have any expenditures hit like up through to January, you're going to have a deficit because you're not going to have any revenues in your actuals. So, you know, budgets to be able to put some money in from general fund to borrow from until you get reimbursed, and then send it back. And just an FYI, the general fund expenditures and transfers combined that exceed revenues by more than 5%, that gets red flagged at DFA in their budget approval letter. So, and this, you know, that may happen though. You know, you might be over. You might have some large one-time expenditures. You know, but if you've got the money for it, it might be just a one-time cost. Just to explain it to DFA, they're still going to put that language in, but they really bold it so that the commissioners can see that. Recurring expenditures should be in line again with recurring revenues. If this is not balanced, the county will need to monitor its cash balances closely. The county's accounting software should be have reconciled data that you can extract to get prior year expenditures as well. Also, there's a lot of public data on the state and federal websites where you can get distribution information from. So plan for new capital purchase using your depreciation schedules. Remember to watch your assets and other personal property so they are replaced appropriately in a timely manner. This helps to be proactive instead of reactive when something needs replacing. So checks and balances, separation of duties in all levels of authority. This is to help not only the county, but to help protect the employees as well. For instance, you don't want the same person who does procurement to do accounts payable. There's no checks and balances there. They can be, you know, it gives opportunity, and you just eliminate that. Your auditors are going to look for those two internal controls as well as what was a finding. So get your policy and procedures in place as well. Your auditors will want those too. Reconcile the bank to the accounting software monthly. This is so important. If you don't have reconciled numbers, it makes your reporting unusable. It saves so much work at the end of a quarter or the end of the fiscal year as well. And send a budget versus detail report to all your departments each month. This way they can track their revenues and expenditures as well, because they know what they're spending their money on. If they see something out of line, they can contact the finance department or whoever's doing the reporting, and they can fix it through journal entries, and that helps, it gets another set of eyes on they can watch their budget, they're happy, you're happy, so that's a really good thing to do. And then you want them to review their accounts for correctness, because they know it should be hitting their accounts. Or at least send the reports that you're using to develop your monthly and quarterly reports. I also prepare a finance report for transparency on where we stand for every month, and I present that to the governing body. I brought a sample for you guys in the packet. And the DFA secure access forms. Over in Cibola, so we've got all of our commissioners on board. I've got them all to sign an SAF form, as well as the treasurers and county manager. Wendy and myself are the only ones that have access to actually enter data, but all of the commissioners have access to read and see what was submitted and check all the files. And this is a great thing because it allows the commissioners to get emails. Whenever something is submitted on LGBMS, you get an email, and it says when it was submitted, so you guys know that your finance director or whoever's submitting the reports is submitting on time. It's a great check and balance. And communication, the last one. This is critical not only to the state feds, it's also extremely important internally. Develop policies and procedures. You have multiple resources out there as well. You got your DFA budget analyst, Southwest COG, Michael Steininger from DFA, other counties. You got the affiliates programs, New Mexico Edge classes, budget conferences to go to, etc. And if you don't know, then ask, and always trust but verify. And so, I'd like to, that's the end of the presentation. I'd like to give some, Wendy, could you help me pass these back to the commissioners and people back up the tables? And then, yeah, we left it over, the public's welcome to have some. Local government division, the authority to request your budgets and quarterly reports and budget adjustments. On the back, there's just some information on the capital outlay process. And then if you pull the next two out, if anybody's wondering, this is called an enactment date table. And if you go to Catron, it shows wherever it has some numbers in those, under those increments, those are enacted. And how you read that, if it has a 1 before, it means January, and the last two numbers are the year. And so you can tell when it was enacted. And this manual here tells you what it can be used for. Now you can also have an ordinance that restricts it further, but this is like the main guideline. After that, with this here, so this is on the DFA website too. I manipulated it to be more presentable, but this is a great tool. I refer to it all the time. This is the most commonly used statutes, New Mexico Constitution, and rules that local governments deal with. So, you know, if you want to ask about correction fees, it's in alphabetical order. Just find correction fees, and, you know, it really helps out. And the next one are statutes that help you with property tax. And then your attorneys are such great resources. I mean, they've been very impressed with them. So use them. They're so helpful. Very responsive, and that's about all I've got.
Paul, I want to thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be back.
Do you have a spare one of those?
Yes, sir.
I'd love to have one. Thank you very much, Paul.
You bet.
Always give a copy to the man with the gun.
That's what I was looking at. And then if there's any extras, I don't know. I don't have any extras. If you guys would like to
We
know
can, if somebody wants a copy, we'll make sure they get a copy.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Paul.
You bet. And if you want any of this stuff on electronic file, just let me know.
Okay.
Thank you guys very much.
Great. 10 minutes.
Go back down where we run out.
Get back to this long meeting. All right, moving right along. We're at the discussion items. So these are just for discussion. We got Burke Avenue in Lumen. What do we got?
Mr. Chairman, Jody Tells came and talked to me about Burke Avenue, and I was unaware of whether or not it was actually a county road. Mark, I met with Mark. Mark's checked out the road. It's on our schedule, and so it will be maintained regularly. I don't know if Jody wanted to bring anything else up about that, but Mark's here to answer questions.
What was the issue on Burke Road?
Maintenance of Burke Road. It's a road right off the main highway in Luna.
Has it not been getting maintained and there was a question or what?
No, I was unaware of it at the time and had Mark check into it, and Jody had expressed some concerns about that.
Part of the issue is me working in government for so many years, and I work in the construction field for most of the time for Air Force and Army and Navy. When the government comes in and accrues property, and you put in roads and stuff like that, you're supposed to, especially if you're getting federal funding, maintain them to a certain standard. Of course, we have budgets, and so part of that is ingress-egress laws of maintaining the road so you can, when you get a 911 address, it's for multiple purposes. LEA, ambulances, fire, all of it. If you take on that responsibility and you take property from individuals, you have to maintain that road to a certain standard, especially when you start giving 911 addresses and stuff like that. So under that, we got to have it so you can get in and get out, no matter what the inclement weather is, whether it's snowing, rain, mud, whatever. So we need to maintain them to a certain standard because of our ambulances and our fire. If we can't get into them, then it becomes a lawsuit on the county or the entity getting into it because you're not properly maintaining them to a certain standard. So under that, I've gone in and talked to the manager. I just got done talking to the Forest Service more. I've talked to numerous agencies trying to do a cooperative agreement with the county, with Forest Service. So Forest Service has pits throughout the forest where we can harvest road base to maintain some of these roads. I know we're at a limited budget in the county, and that's why I'm trying to get the federal government, Forest Service, county, and get the fundings and stuff that we need to maintain these roads and get it where we can get it up to a higher standard so these vehicles and stuff can get in and out. Not only the people that live there that pay the taxes there, but also our emergency vehicles. And Burke is one of those that the county blades and somewhat maintains, but there's no road base to it. So when it rains or whatever, you can't get in and out of it in a two-wheel drive vehicle. Most of the ambulances and fire trucks that are out there are not four-wheel drive. So if we actually have a fire or we have an emergency, I'm a 100% disabled vet. And if I had an issue, they probably, you know, depending on the weather, whether they could get to me or not. And so it's our obligation if the county or the federal government takes property and puts a roadway in, now they're liable for the road and maintaining that road to a certain standard, according to ingress, egress, and how many people and stuff, but you still got to maintain it when you start giving 911 addresses and stuff like that.
I would remind Mr. Tells that we have 970 miles of dirt road in our county, and we have disabled vets living on many of them. We have a regularly maintained schedule, and we try to make we try to set roads for improvement. If you're going out towards, for instance, if you're going out from Luna towards Highway 60, you'll notice a significant job going on out there of improvement on that road. And we're always going to have times where some of our roads are impassable. That's just the way that is. But it is on the schedule, and it has, both Mark and Jeff have reviewed it and looked at it and talked about improvements that they can make as they get to them. And it's not that you're going to be ignored, but we work on things as best we can. And I appreciate you coming in and talking to us. Mark, did you want to add anything to that?
The road will be bladed again in mid-July. And I know it doesn't have gravel, but, you know, we're looking at that, you know, as we got another 600 miles without gravel. But we'll work on them as we can. And that's the best we can do.
See, and that comes back to due diligence on the government's part, that when you start taking those, you should automatically start budgeting for those roads. So you have took on just my properties, you have took 30 feet by almost 1,000 foot of my property to put a road in, that you, and I'm just one person, that you need to start budgeting. If you're going to take these roads on and you're going to start giving ingress and doing all that, then you need to start budgeting properly to maintain those roads to a certain standard. That's by federal law. If you're taking federal law money, federal money, it's law that you have to maintain it to a certain standard. If you don't have that budget, you have to go find that budget. So you either got to get grants, and the easiest thing is to partner with our partners that are in our community, which is Forest Service, our military, our there's all kinds of entities. State. I'm on my way down here. The state has tons and tons of milling. Where those millions came from, probably through this county. And if this county is milling and the highways go through it, that is federal dollars and stuff, we ought to be able to go in and allocate and say, hey, state, what do we need to do to purchase or basically get some of this milling? And milling is ground up asphalt. When they do projects and stuff like that, and they mill these highways and these roads, it goes into piles. And if you don't
on these millings and stuff like that and doing the best we can with, what they'll allow us to use.
Right.
And another thing, we're doing the best we can on your road too,
Well,
that's what we got.
I'm not saying you're not doing the best that you can, but if I would have just settled back in my military career and said I'm doing the best I can, I won't do that. I'll go on and above. That's why I've talked to the manager and everything else, and I'm willing to go out into the military community that I come from and the Forest Service and everything else and see if we can't come to a cooperative agreement to get the equipment. If we need to start budgeting for crushers or screens that we can do in multiple places. And it sounds like the Forest Service is willing to work with us on these pits. And in return, they get some of the material, the county gets some of the material, and certain individuals get training on the equipment.
So Mark, I have a question. Is this road currently not passable by law enforcement or EMS or fire?
It is currently passable right now. It's in pretty good shape.
So the issue is not that it's impassable, the issue is it's not meeting the requirements that this gentleman wants them to be met,
He's saying that it needs to have surface and material on it.
which is probably all of our roads.
That's correct.
What road or where is this road?
It's called Burke Avenue, and real close to the Forest Service road that
It's
goes
the
up
next
to the
road
Forest
down
Service.
from the Forest Service road.
It goes up by the old Adair place. Cliff, do you remember where that is?
Yeah.
And it only has a 30-foot easement on it. So it's.
I drove it yesterday in a Dodge Caliber to go up there and back.
It's fine when it's not snowing and it's not raining.
As an ambulance, as an EMT and a firefighter, we've gone on really, really bad roads, but we get through with or without a four-wheel drive. So that's why I was asking, is it not passable? But it is currently passable.
Yeah, currently it is. When we were looking at it and looking to purchase it and stuff like that, we took a two-wheel drive and you basically couldn't get up in there. When it was muddy and rainy. They had about 18-inch ruts, and if you're in a two-wheel drive vehicle, you're not going to get in there. And you're going to be in the bar ditch. When the electric company came up in there, you could see where they just buried their vehicle right on the edge and stuff. It's pretty bad. And when you go in there and you start taking off all that material, now all you got is dirt and no rock base. That's not a certain standard that's met, that you guys are obligated when you start taking this and start doing roads.
So where does this road go, Mark?
I think, well, it just goes to the housing and then it quits at the bottom of that hill. That's as far as our responsibility is. Where it goes from there, I don't know. But there's, I think, 3 or 4 families that live up that road.
There's 4 properties, and the family that owns all of that property, that homestead, it's in the process of being sold. And that's where we bought it. We bought 20 acres there, and there's about 130 more that's gonna, at some point in time, that's gonna be sold.
The old James property, too, I
So
think.
it goes up to the property line, crosses forest there.
No,
It crosses Dillman, and there's 2 places on it above there. One of them belongs to Ron Hutchison, and then it ends at the forest line at the very end. But the road that doesn't go that far. I mean, you can get up there, but it's not
Maintained.
not a county road.
Are there school kids living on that road?
In fact, that Ron Hutchison that owns the place at the very end is only there maybe a month or 2 out of the year. He's,
Okay, we better go to the next one before I get all right, we'll see what we get done. Maybe we'll get it done. No sanctuary county status.
What we have is we have several counties that are adopting resolutions on no sanctuary. And it's just there for a discussion item. If you don't want to discuss it, that's fine. I don't know where our county stands on that.
Susan Moore had contacted me and I told her that she needs to bring it before the commission and answer questions because she had asked me if we would consider it. And I said, you need to bring it before the commission. I can't say yes or no. I'm not going to do it over an email or the phone, so.
Exactly. All I received was, and I expected somebody to be here and they're not, so.
So then we just move on.
We'll move on. Kamado Rodeo Arena use.
I included in there the old agreement where they received funding for the arena, but Mr. Chavez, who was going to be here for the discussion, had to take his mother for surgery this morning. She broke her arm, so he's not going to be here. So I would ask for you to table that until we reschedule.
We definitely do need to address this, and just for your information, the livestock board has always been able to use that arena for strays that they pick up. They did have some horses, some stud horses that were put in the arena, and they were told they had to move those horses. I contacted the state livestock board on my own, and I probably shouldn't have, but told them They have the right to use that arena, and if anybody tells them they have to move their animals out that he's keeping till he finds the rightful owners, they need to call the county. And it was an individual who had his horse there, and he didn't want those other horses crippling his mare. I have a problem with that. That is not a personal use arena, and the livestock board should never be told they have to move their animals out of there.
We probably should come up with a policy countywide, because we've had the same problems in Glenwood with the arena down there and people using it for personal reasons for extended times. So we probably should come up with a policy dealing with both arenas.
Yeah,
This is an arena that the county built.
This is an arena that was built with, basically, yeah, the money came through the county. It was a grant through the rodeo initiative with Bill Richardson.
And then the rodeo arena in Kamado is under a BLM special use permit. So it's designed to be a rodeo arena for the community. And when it works well and everybody gets to use it like it's intended to be used, it works great. But when you get individuals in there that view that as their personal corral or their arena, and the livestock board gets kicked out, that's when, and I always told them, you guys manage the arena in a professional way, but don't try and control it to where not everybody can use it, because you don't want the county to get involved and have to do contracts, and that's where we're at right now. It got contentious.
So we got people keeping their personal horses there, and they're upset because the livestock board brought some.
In this instance right there, that, I'm not sure why the mare was kept there, because they had their own corrals to put the horse at, but they kept them there. So when the livestock board put these two horses, they were worried that his mare was going to get hurt, so they told the livestock board they had to move the horses, so the livestock inspector took them to his house. That is not acceptable for me. That should not have happened.
Okay, well,
Probably need to come up with a policy.
Yeah, we're gonna have to come up with one, and I was hoping we didn't have to, because then it's more rules and regulations and paperwork. But if they can't play in the same sandbox, then we have to set some guidelines.
well, and like I say, probably, because of the Glenwood arena too, we probably should look at this as a countywide
Yeah.
situation. We have 3 arenas.
And the arena in Kamado, the one rodeo that caused all the problems, brought a lot of revenue into Kamado. And the businesses were so excited because they ran out of gas, they ran out of food, the restaurants were full the whole time. And then you get in a little bickering match, and people that organize the rodeo are like, fine, we'll just go to Squirrel. Well, there goes all that revenue to Squirrel County because of the Catron. So, yeah, it needs to be addressed.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, real quick, I know that we've had issues here in reserve over events, and I believe that the Glenwood arena is county property. Is that correct?
I think so.
And I don't know, I know that there was local fellows that built that arena. I don't know where the funding and stuff came from, but one of the things that I'm concerned about is we've roughed up individuals here for having liability on their events that they have here in Reserve, and I don't know if it's the same thing in Kamado, but they are having an event over the 4th of July at the arena. It's a roping of some sort, and they've advertised an individual to contact. I don't want to pick on him, but because of others, I believe they should have liability insurance for those things. And
We generally have them, and Linda can set them up with that. All they have to do is call her, and she can give them the information.
Right, and I don't think it's a bad on their part, I just don't think they realize that they've got to have liability.
All right. Borderlands Wind Project.
Okay,
Somebody here with
guys, drove all this way, you just go talk to us.
Flew most of the way, but, so I didn't know you had electronics. I could have projected this, but I brought copies.
Oh, is that a bash on Catron County?
No.
We thought you were still coal-fired here, so we didn't bring any electricity.
You just don't have sweatshirts.
That's good.
You're trying to get us electricity to bring us in the new age, I understand.
So, good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. You guys, my name is Gabe Heenahan. I'm with NextEra Energy. I'm the project director for Borderlands Wind. You guys have heard of this project last year from one of my colleagues. Christopher Catron came in and spoke to you, I believe, at a commission meeting at a different location, and he's the one that told me they didn't have projectable capabilities at the other location.
Well, actually, we didn't have room to even actually squeeze a projector in there, but now.
So Chris actually went on to take on a different role, and so I've had most of New Mexico development for 3 years for our company, and so it made sense to transition this project to me, so I took it over in January of this year. I've worked with Dave Pato up in Cibola County on a solar project that we're building next year for the Facebook data center, so he's a familiar face. We're meeting this afternoon, just to give you a heads up, with Mr. Green and Mrs. Cook to talk more detail about the project. But I wanted to, oh, and lastly, we received a letter that came from Mr. Green. Looked like it had some, related to some of the comments from the BLM public scoping meeting. We have a written response to give you today that you can distribute. So, as far as the company, we're the largest in the industry in renewables. We have 15,000 megawatts of wind and just under 3,000 of solar. So that, basically, we know what we're doing. We have more projects anywhere in the United States than anyone. Another interesting thing about our company is we're not a flipper, a developer. We're an owner-operator. So that means we stay around and operate these facilities for the life of the project, 30, 35, 40 years. So we have a vested interest in being invested in the community and being a good neighbor and not just, making deals quickly and then selling it to someone else to live with, and then you guys are stuck. So I have a couple maps also, a zoomed in one. We're just west of Camado. We are 95% on BLM land and 5% on state land and 5% on private land. The project is 100 megawatts of wind, which will be, the technology we're looking at now might be different than what Chris told you guys. We're actually going with less turbines, but they're going to be a little bit bigger megawatt capacity. So we're looking at 32 2.82 megawatt turbines and 4 2.3 megawatts. The 4 for the safe harbor to get the production tax credit that the federal government has right now. We're on about just under 19,000 acres is the whole footprint. Generally each turbine takes up only about an acre, but in order to spread them out so they don't wake each other, that's why you occupy so much land. But infrastructure will be on a very small percentage of that land. They are, if you go back to one of the maps, you can see the green line, yellow lines running down the west side of the project. Those are 2 existing 345 kV transmission lines that run parallel to the site. So we're going to be tapping those lines. I have an exhibit later on. Our primary access is from Billneck Gap Road, and Mr. Green, we have some updates for you on that. I think we spoke with Mark on the phone a few times, and Jeff, we met with Jeff to talk about some road stuff, so we'll update you on that. And we're looking at a total investment of about $200 million. Targeting May 1, start of construction, and because there's 36 turbines, we can get this done in 5 to 6 months.
Really?
Yeah.
May 1 of next year, I hope.
2020.
Oh.
Yeah, next year. Yeah, that's next year. Yeah, not last month. Now we've had this project's been under development since 2017. These things take a long time to develop and permit, but we build them very quickly.
Right, go through the NEPA process.
Yeah, so because we're on BLM land, we're going through the NEPA process. If you look at the exhibit here, this is just a general idea of this drawing here of the 2 lines or the dash lines that are out there today. We're going to be building it's a much bigger box than it really will be, but it'll be about maybe 10 acres, and it's a big switch yard. So whenever you have existing lines, you have to cut them, and then you bring them into a breaker configuration and to allow the project to tap in. So we bury all of our collection line. Just think of it as a phone line between the turbines that moves the power at a medium voltage. There are cables about this big around. There's 3 of them. They go in an 18-inch wide trench by 36 inches deep, typically. And those get trenched in with a trenching machine. So onto the schedule. Here's some highlights, just to update you on the BLM. We're right at the May 2019, really it just happened last week. The BLM issued what they call the draft environmental impact statement to all sorts of cooperating agencies that involve military, Air Force for FAA concerns, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, SHPO, all the federal agencies that get involved in the NEPA process. So the current plan is to have a notice to proceed June. A couple road improvements. We've had multiple meetings with New Mexico DOT. They requested that we widen the road on 60, as most of our deliveries are going to come from the east on 60. And so they want a dedicated left turn lane to go into Bill Knight Gap Road. So we have 60% plans in their office right now that they're reviewing. We're probably going to start that work before the wind farm mobilization. We'd like to have that in place and completed before the turbine components start showing up. And then on the Bill Knight Gap Road, you guys are probably more familiar than me, but by Mr. Chavez's corral there, it floods terribly. Or Mark can probably know it off of 60. Once you get down to his corral on the left, you can just see the water stain. So we originally thought we would raise the road, but then we came up with an agreement with the Chavez's to actually relocate it up on a little high mesa, all on his property, and then bring it back once we get past that low area. So we think that's a better solution. I think Mark agreed that that was better than trying to put 5 feet of material through a road, an area that just wants to stay wet naturally anyway. So that will be ongoing as well, probably before the project starts construction also, being that that's our primary. We have a secondary emergency only access agreement down Hooper Ranch Road. All the way, my understanding from Mr. Houston is it's dedicated, or the county's in the process of making it all, truing it all up, but you maintain down to one of his old barns there, like an old house. So he considers it county to there, county road. And we have an agreement with him to extend from there up to the substation, O&M building, and for emergency purposes. Because it can be like 12 miles to get down to the site from 60, down Bill Knight Gap. And the Hooper Ranch access is 4 miles. And so we're going to improve, and there's going to be signage that, because we don't want contractors or employees after things operate driving by Mr. Hooper and Mr. Houston's homesteads. It's not what that purpose is. It's strictly for emergency access only. And so the last thing is the IRB. I don't know how many of these you guys have done. They're very common with renewable energy projects. Almost every renewable energy project, at least in a state that has this kind of mechanism, seeks an IRB, which comes with a PILT payment that's negotiated with the county. And so we're going to be talking to Mr. Green about our thoughts on that today as well. And Dave and I worked on one for CELA last year. And that's basically it. Just wanted to come introduce myself as the new project manager and give you an update, and then I will. Sorry, I'm with Lane Harris is my. He manages our land team out here. Lane's born and raised New Mexican from Roswell. but don't hold that against him. And this is Dan Moritz. He manages all of our community relations and permitting stuff. So the three of us have been spending a lot of time since January.
And haven't been shot yet or anything, so.
I have not. He has 2 guns, I see. Mr. Chavez pulled up with a shotgun in his truck, and everyone has guns around here. Mr. Houston.
Yeah, I'd like to add just a couple more points of detail from what David said there regarding our work with the BLM so far. So last time we spoke, a lot of these things hadn't happened, but as part of the draft EIS process, we're required to provide our avian surveys, cultural resources surveys. We've done geotechnical investigations out at the site as well to make sure that where we're planning on putting turbines, the ground can actually hold them and use them. We're also working with the State Lands Group, State Lands Commercial Business Lease process to secure a business lease with them to put 2 turbines on their property. And we've also made really good progress with the private property owners there in the area. So I think last time we spoke, a lot of those things were in the works, but they have since been completed and we've gotten good results so far. So we can answer questions on that as well.
So we're pretty much looking at a May start.
May 2020 is probably more like June, where the heavy stuff comes in. I mean, May would be turn lane on State Road 60, the improvement to Bill Knight Gap Road, that kind of stuff. Getting the project set up for full access. Yeah, so, a lot of things have happened since January. Since I took over, I thought we were a little bit behind in our schedule, so we've been, like Dan said, full topography survey of the full site. We've done geotech, it's all complete. All of our surveys are complete. And we're planning to be talking to you guys a lot moving forward.
Well, any other questions I have for you, I can bring up later. Thank you.
But I'm here for the commissioners as well.
Need your business card?
Oh, yeah, I have a stack, I'll leave for sure.
Mr. Chairman, is there livestock under these?
So there are some grazing leases. It's actually very common with wind. What's the nice thing about it is it's a multi-use kind of project, unlike solar, where you can take out 1,000 acres of land out of its current use for solar farms. Wind, you can still graze underneath it and everything. And so that's a big part of the BLM process.
Do you manage when there's conflict with wildlife and livestock?
We do. And you'll see our response in the letter that we got, but I'll just address it now. Any landowner that is part of the project or adjacent to the project, we offer them agreements, and they come with it's called a wind farm participation agreement. If you don't have direct infrastructure on your property, and you get a payment every year for that just to participate, to be adjacent to it. And there's also in there a ranching impact fee, and that covers, and that's annual, and that covers any, if anything happens to the cattle, that's out there.
And also lots of grazing.
Correct. And there's fire in there as well that is intended to make up for any loss. I mean, we have, of the hundreds of wind farms we have across the country, the vast majority of them still have cattle grazing around them with no issue.
How about wildlife, birds?
So, part of the, birds are always a big concern, right? The reality is that wind farms are way less impactful to birds than most other forms of energy. Buildings kill birds. That's the number one killer of birds.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. I'm a little hard of hearing.
So, I said buildings kill birds, number one. Cats are number two. Wind turbines are somewhere down, I don't know the whole hierarchy list, but I mean, it's always a concern. We have to site the wind turbines based on our aviary studies. We have to do monitoring. We have to have an eagle management plan if there's an eagle within, 20 miles of the site, which we have all that in place. The BLM's reviewing that. U.S. Fish and Wildlife is reviewing that and making recommendations on. So we're still kind of going through that right now because they just issued the draft document. So we'll be working with them to, there's regulations and guidelines federally out there.
And the power that you produce goes on the grid.
It does.
Into the TE power lines. Is there a customer on the other end of that line that you guys provide service for, or a lot of them?
So these energy projects sell power through what they call power purchase agreement, PPA, you'll hear. And so typically the customer would be the host utility who owns that line. So we have an agreement with TEP. We're going through some modifications of that right now, but we have one to sell the power already. We already have a customer. Socorro Electric is going to be providing us distribution power, so we've been working with Charles, Douglas, and folks at his office. We're going to be extending a distribution line and for the substation backup power. The substation will actually get its power from the wind farm, but in the cases where the wind's not blowing or the wind, there's an issue, we have a backup supply from Socorro. So we have, we're working with them right now to build that line.
What's the cost of a kilowatt?
It varies by market.
Cost to me,
Oh.
as a house concern. That's a hard question. I'm sorry.
I don't know what your, cents per kilowatt rate is from your utility provider here.
Well, coal energy is, I'm told, is around 3 cents a kilowatt.
3 cents a kilowatt for coal. I can't, I don't believe that. That seems very low to me. That's what you would pay for something from coal?
That's what I'm told.
Yeah. So
That's what the provider of the electricity is paying their company.
I don't know.
So I could talk a little bit about coal. I know Mrs. Ann brought this up to me. There's a lot of folks think that renewable energy is killing coal and oil and natural gas, killing that industry. It varies by region, but generally across the country, United States right now, natural gas is the cheapest form of energy out there. It's way cheaper than coal, way cheaper than oil, it's cheaper than renewables. It just is. Renewables are creeping up on, renewables are lower than coal and oil, they're creeping up to natural gas, but natural gas is killing coal and oil. It's just the facts, it's just economics. It's not, it loses to natural gas all day, every day on pricing. With as much natural gas as going on in the Permian Basin and all over the country. I mean, natural gas is dirt cheap right now. And I know oil's pretty cheap too, but that probably won't last. I know it upsets people in coal country when we come in there with projects, but I think they're pointing the finger at the wrong person to why the coal plants are shutting down.
I don't think this is a restroom, this is just me, just the way I am. And I really don't give a damn what somebody else thinks about my opinion, because most of the time they just ignore me. But, one thing I will tell you is, I think that the green renewable energy is kind of being crammed on our throats. And I don't think that our government, our state government, and other people really have their ducks completely in a row. And at the end of it all, when we move to that kind of energy, and boy, I hope it works and I hope it's affordable. That's my concern.
Yeah. All these projects typically are bid through a competitive RFP process. They get pricing back from multiple developers. They'll select one, usually it's the lowest qualified bidder. And then they have to go get it approved at a commission, a PRC or a PUC, So those folks are the ones who are allegedly looking out for the customer's best interests. But there's the RPS standard that this current administration just upped dramatically.
Thank you for answering my questions. I don't mean to be picking on you.
You're not.
I want to know.
Yeah, and I'll leave you my card. I'm happy to come meet with you and talk with you.
Is any of this visible from the
So we just did some visual simulations from the red.
Or I mean 60, sorry.
Yeah, 60. So from 60, you're likely not to see much because 60 sits low. I mean, you might see the closest turbine to 60 is pretty good way set back. I don't know the exact distance, I could get it, but we've done visual simulations from all different angles. We just went back out because we heard some concerns from the Red Hill neighbors on the scoping meeting the BLM had. So we did a couple of visual simulations out there, and it's, you know, it's very benign. I mean, you can see the very, very tip of a blade when it's at its highest position.
And the people in that subdivision, are they gonna have a lot of noise from these things?
No, but they're so far away. The only noise you can really hear is almost if you're standing underneath the turbine and it's spinning at a pretty good clip. You hear like a as the blade goes around. But from even a mile away, you can't hear a thing. You hear nothing.
Question back there.
I got some input because under renewable energy through NEC was needing their green energy certifications. So I got into the solar industry and I put up 24 panels at a very expensive cost of about 30 grand. It's cost me $115 a month. And when I sell back, I got 6.5 kilowatts, which is quite a bit of energy being put back on the grid. And it's probably not going to pay off for me. Even though I don't use that much energy, when they buy it from me, they're buying it at 3 cents a kilowatt. When I have to buy it from them, it's 11 cents a kilowatt. And so when it's said and done, you got to pay grid fees and a bunch of other stuff. So the thought process of renewables is good, but the cost of it is astronomical. You know, when you start talking, how long is it going to take me to make 30 grand on this? It's going to take me a lifetime. So I don't know if renewables right now, because the way they are, is 100%. But I know from my personal, knowing what I know now, I probably would never have done it again on the renewables.
And I'm not a residential solar expert. I deal in the what we call the utility scale, the bigger stuff. But we have another employee who lives in Albuquerque. He works in our travel relations group. He's a Zuni Pueblo member. And he has rooftop solar on his house. I don't know who your provider is or what your deal is. And he had a very similar initial investment, but he has a simple payback of 7 years on his deal. And he put I think it was a 5 kilowatt system on his roof. It varies in Florida, where I live, where we're headquartered. The payback for rooftop solar is about 12 years currently. And it's called net metering, where your meter spins bidirectionally. So when you're producing more power than you're using, the meter spins backwards and pushes power to the grid. And then at night when the sun goes down, your meter starts spinning the other way, and they true up at the end of the month. Generally how it works. But again, I don't know who, you know, how your setup is.
It's our local power company here, and in Arizona, NEC.
Oh, okay.
And, you know, for us in Luna and stuff, that's who put ours in, is
Gotcha.
NEC. So it's our local power company, and like I said, it was just under 30 grand. Our note is 15 years at $115 a month. Plus I got to pay a grid fee of $33 for the rest, as long as I have the system.
Yeah.
This is kind of separate.
So we've got, this last page, Catron County has to issue bonds. Is that what?
Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, all these renewable energy projects seek an industrial revenue bond. It's basically a tax abatement that the state of New Mexico has created. In other states I work, you just go negotiate with the county what you want to pay in property taxes. Because the reality is these energy projects sit out there and do nothing. It's not like a neighborhood apartment complex. We flood the school system, so hey, we need to build another school. We don't put a big burden on water, sewer, police, fire, roads, really, once they're operating, only during construction. So they just sit out there, and the IRB is kind of found money for the counties, you know. We're not gonna burden you with a bunch of infrastructure costs after we're out there operating. And so the state came up with this IRB. If you meet certain criteria, which renewable energy projects do, then you can apply for an industrial revenue bond and negotiate a PILT.
Mr. Chairman, if I might just jump in and explain just generally what this is. As Gabe suggested, the legislature created a legal mechanism by which we set fair legal title to the project for the purpose of them obtaining this property tax abatement. In exchange for their property tax abatement, the county and the schools negotiate a percentage of what we're going to each take of this PILT that we negotiate with them. So that's how this all works. So we're not actually issuing bonds as in the traditional sense as when we issue a general obligation bond of the county. This does not constitute a general obligation of the county. We're never responsible for repaying anything of that nature. Really, it's just a legal mechanism by which we acquire their legal title, and because of that, then they become exempt pursuant to the property tax code. The state just doesn't get a cut, as it would if it were property taxes.
So that's the important part, is that we are not putting the county's credit. If you do that, it's not, the county's credit is not on the line.
Yeah, generally, I've seen it work a lot of different ways. I've obtained 3 of them in New Mexico myself over the last 2 years. Generally, how it's been working is our company would negotiate with the county manager on the payment amount, and then and then he would negotiate with the superintendent on the split. There's been other cases where the county wanted us to go talk to the school district about what split they wanted, and I don't think that worked out well. It's better, it's best. I thought in another case, I just did one where we weren't involved in that. We worked with the county, and then the county kind of just worked it out with the school district, and I think it worked out better for the county than in the other case.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would echo that and suggest that Mr. Green negotiate work and to be something that needs our assistance. You know, we all negotiate with Kamado schools on that distribution. Ultimately, it's not the schools that are issuing the IRBs, it's the county. It's the county that needs to execute the inducement resolution, review that inducement resolution. It's the county that has to provide the infrastructural support. As Mr. Henn stated, it doesn't impose any burden on the school system. It's not like they're getting more students by virtue of the installation of these wind farms. So the cost of the school, it's just a benefit, pure benefit to the school. It's found money to the school. The county,
the problem is there's no real historical thing to set back on and say this is what we should get, because it's across the board. When you call around the state, it's anywhere from 50-50 to 90-10 as far as who gets what, and it's been 90-10 both ways. So it's hard, and I know that Kamado will, they'll push for as much as they can get.
yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would just suggest we should get the 90.
I would second that.
Yeah. Prepared for a fight.
Yeah, so as Dave mentioned, there's 3 public hearings.
I like that, though. We think that it would be better if we let you guys do that.
I just did one in Torrance County, and
but that's a good position.
It worked out better for the county, me not being involved, because the one in Siebel County, it didn't work out as great for the county, right, Dave?
No, it was a train wreck, is what it was. I mean, so we ended up fighting. I mean, the school said, we're willing just to let it blow up. If you don't give us, I don't remember what they decided on there. What the ultimate number
They wanted
was.
they wanted like more like a 60-40 split in favor of the school
Which
district.
is not what happened ultimately, but at the end of the day, it was a really hard-fought deal where they were willing to blow up the entire project and bite their nose, spite their face, essentially, and not let the project go forward unless they're holding us hostage for that percentage.
Yeah, because the reality is if we didn't get that any IRB really, these projects become much less viable, and especially on that particular one. If we didn't get the pilot, we weren't building the project. So the county conceded, was it 5149?
I think it's 5149.
Was the ultimate, because they knew that without that, the project died.
It was just petty and horrible.
Could the school take over the IRB if they're gonna get greedy
No, they don't.
No,
That's
we
the
have
problem,
to
is we still have to do all the work.
Yeah.
We do all the
Wait a
use resolution, all that
The
stuff.
negotiations should be as much work as they're going to do.
So it looks like you're gonna get all your NEPA and EIS, all that,
So we're
looking
current,
good?
yeah, the current schedule is May 2020. We'll have a record of decision. They call it a ROD. That's like the end of the whole NEPA process. And then you get offered a right-of-way grant. And that can take a couple weeks to, you have to post some bonds and a lot of legal documents to sign. But, so, inducement resolution is hearing one, then you go to the school board and they have to pass a support resolution, and then the county will have to pass an IRB ordinance. So there's 3 public hearings. So we're hoping to get all that knocked out pretty quickly. So that's why I expect to be seeing you a lot.
And Mr. Chairman, if I might just add, certainly whether to issue the IRB rests within the discretion of this board. This board gets to make the determination as to whether or not it wants to be a part of this or not. So that's what the inducement resolution is, the purpose of the inducement resolution is. If we let them know at the inducement, in our consideration of that inducement resolution that we're not interested in this project or we're not interested in being a partner in this project, then they go about their merry way and, determine whether or not, without the IRBs, whether or not the project will be successful. And, if they do construct the project, and in this instance, it's on federal land, so I'm not sure that we would be able to tax it, or we wouldn't be able to tax it to the extent it's on federal land, but otherwise, we would simply just lose out on the money.
Mr. Jones has you have a question?
Yeah. What kind of amount are we talking, roughly?
Okay, so wind is different than solar. I taught Dave that just a minute ago. Wind's been around for like 30 years. Solar's relatively new. And as you know, the pricing of solar is still, it's dropped dramatically. The panel wattage is up to 420. I don't know what's on your roof. But I mean, solar is just on a steep nosedive in price. But wind has already done that. So wind is very cheap compared to solar. So that drives the IRB down. I'm going to share with Mr. Green some information that we have on all the wind IRBs in the state of New Mexico. They vary anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000 per megawatt per year. So that on a 100 megawatt site, that would be anywhere from $100,000 a year to $500,000 a year. And that's over 30 years. So, you're looking at...
We'll take the 5.
So the wind is averaging in New Mexico with all the IRBs issued throughout the whole state, wind is averaging about $2,400 a megawatt across all IRBs issued. We're going to offer you more than that today, later, but I'm not prepared to discuss that until I talk to you first.
That's right.
And how many megawatts?
It's 100 megawatts.
What happens when we
So 2 things happen. You either, which is happening more commonly, is people and the customers love the projects. Everyone, this isn't as bad as we thought it was going to be, and so we repower them. So we sign new contracts, put new technology up. A lot of times the foundations stay, all the infrastructure underground stays, and we just erect new, more efficient turbines. So in 30 years, who knows what they're going to be like, but way more efficient. If not, we decommission, and we have a decommissioning plan that not only part of the BLM, but we'll give it to the counties as well for your comfort. And the decommissioning plan is we restore the ground exactly how it was before we showed up and down to 4 feet below surface. We will leave some stuff in the ground 4 feet below because that's below what we consider the dig up depth. And there's no harm in leaving it in the ground. And so that's generally what our decommissioning plan. And there's actually some federal guidance on how you must do that as well. But we will have a very detailed decommissioning plan. Okay. So those are really what you do with it. You either repower them or you decommission them.
Howard.
Is that revenue stream per kilowatt produced or potential?
Are you talking about the IRB?
Yes.
Oh, it's just based on the size of the project. So if it's a 100 megawatt project, you're getting whatever dollar per megawatt per year we agree on. Every year.
But
So
that's
you look-
what you produce, not what you have the potential for
No,
producing.
it's actually, it's not production.
Right.
It's capacity.
Okay.
The project has a 100 megawatt capacity. We will produce 200,000 megawatt hours over a year. But that's not what the pilot is typically based on. I guess you could call it anything you want, Dave. We've been calling it $1 per megawatt per year.
Okay. Well, thank you for the presentation, and I will meet with you guys later.
Yeah,
It might not be one, we might still be here.
that's right.
But,
Okay, well, thank you for your time.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Next item, Wild and Scenic River Tax.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wild and Scenic River Tax.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I guess maybe I'm to blame for this. I was contacted by an individual where we had a CAP entity meeting in Silver City, and we had, I believe it was the Wilderness Alliance come to us and tell us that they were going to push and try to put forth legislation to establish wild and scenic river studies. Howard, please correct me if I'm wrong, on places throughout the Gila and the San Francisco rivers, which would be, you know, as you well know, when they do a study, this can go on for eons. And it can become de facto wilderness. There's a lot of information from those groups saying that it will not impact the Camp Energy projects, but it will. This would probably, if they establish these areas or corridors, then the next thing would be is how our projects on the CAP, our water projects, would be impacting wild and scenic issues, endangered species, water flow for endangered species below. I mean, so, and the big point that this individual made to me was that legislation was being written for Senator Heinrich and Senator Udall, and the gentleman is an executive director for a special interest group, a conservation special interest group. So my concern is why would they be asking for legislation to be written by that group of people when they definitely have a direction they want to go, lock us all off of it? And I think it would really impact the CAP projects. And I've asked to see maps where they're proposing to do this, but I've yet to get a real clear map, you know, from beginning to end, in the beginning of where these are actually going to be. I saw something that would start close to the double bridges on 180 south of here, where one of the diversion dams is going to go, and it would start there and go to about where the Kelly Ranch Road would, or the Balky Road would intersect with the San Francisco River, and then there would be more beyond that. So we have a meeting, I think it's on Tuesday in Glenwood, with 2 representatives from these offices to talk about this. And I would ask the commission to really oppose this. I don't think, and also demand from the senators of why they didn't come to us and get our input into how we feel. We're the most impacted by these bills that they're going to be writing. And certainly the special interest group that is crafting this has not been good for our county. So I might just defer to Mr. Hutchison because he's a board member of the GAP and he was there, and I know he's probably pretty current on something. Do you have anything to add to that, Howard?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I would say that a wild and scenic river designation doesn't just impact the CAP entity proposed projects. Any groundwater pumping, any water diversions upstream of a wild and scenic river designation can be restricted if it's shown that they are adversely impacting the wild and scenic properties. Not only is diversions of water through groundwater pumping or surface diversion impacted, any road maintenance that may introduce a contaminant into the stream system, any silvicultural practices such as forestry, grazing practices could be demonstrated to adversely impact the water quality of a wild and scenic river. In reality, the designation doesn't increase any protection for the river itself, particularly those segments that are located in wilderness areas or that are governed under protections of critical habitat for threatened and endangered species. So the only real benefit of a wild and scenic river designation is professional litigants. Sorry, attorneys.
Truth hurts.
So, Mr. Chairman, we as a county opposed wild and scenic river designations back in the, I believe it was the late 90s. The Forest Service was going through an evaluation. We successfully opposed those and stopped them from adopting those. Any of these areas have a buffer zone in them, and in virtually every designation of a wild and scenic river, all mineral entry is stopped. There will be no mineral entry within the buffer zone of a wild and scenic river. And that was the main thing that we pointed out, that there were considerable mining claims along a lot of these segments in Catron County, and basically stopped it. But at this point, given the push to go through the legislative process, that previously was an administrative one through the U.S. Forest Service. This is being proposed as legislation. We could have that piece of legislation tacked on to some other omnibus bill, such as what was done with the wilderness designations here recently. An omnibus bill that had funding for the military, let's say, and it would pass, and it would get signed. So I think we need to be on our toes and really be watching the events unfolding.
So Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, we have last month, our law firm, lawyers, they wrote a resolution against this. I wrote a letter to Senator Heinrich, and we did mail that out to each of our representatives in Washington. But Bucky, are you saying we probably, and I've committed to go to the meeting next week too, but are you saying we need to look at taking legal action against them? Is that?
I'm not saying anything other than I think we should attend the meeting. I think that we should demonstrate our position on this, which I'm hoping that I know we can't make a decision right now, but I think just a fact finding and find out why we're not being considered in the crafting of the legislation.
Well, I'm in agreement with that.
And I think maybe just talk to the two representatives. I think I know what the answers are going to be. But go there.
So
Any of them answered the letter you sent?
No.
So, just so I got this straight, is the Wilderness Society has somebody there that's gonna be writing the legislation?
Actually, it's going to be, and you know, this is all a second-hand thing. I was contacted by another commission from another county, and it's going to be Mr. Schulte from the Center of Biological Diversity. He's the one that's correct.
So, if it's gonna go in, is this gonna go into the Gila Forest plan, right? Or is this just something completely?
This is separate.
This is completely separate.
This is
So, one of the places, Commissioner Hand, is I think that from the Kelly Ranch, where between there and the old sawmill site is a corridor that they're considering. So, it's my opinion only, that they're crafting the direction to connect the Blue River Wilderness area, probably with the Allen. Because on the east side of that river in that area, they already have roadless route established there.
Becky, and when we said that is part of the Gila Forest
So,
Revision Plan.
so the forest is going under, is in forest plan revision right now. And one of the elements of the forest plan is to look at wild and scenic rivers. Whether they're designated or not is, I think, an actual different analysis. So, for example, I think, what I believe I remember hearing from our forest planner is like, any stream that could have water, whether it was year-round or not year-round, could be identified as wild and scenic, but that doesn't, eligible, but that does not make it mean it's going to be designated. That's a complete additional separate study. So what I could do is, I've taken a few notes and I will circle back around with Matt Schultz, who is our forest planner, and maybe he can, if you guys are interested, he could talk to you at least about this process of wild and scenic as it relates to forest plan revision.
Mr. Chairman, Emily?
Yes.
We did have a meeting with the supervisor, Adam Mendoza.
Yeah.
And talked about our concerns with it. And he said, I believe he said, and you know, let him tell you this, don't let me get everybody in a bunch of trouble here, because I'm real good at that. What he said there was that the Forest Service was going to consider, that they were going to consider, or could consider three processes. And he said the third process would not be done because there simply is not the time or the budget to do it. So that was sort of his position on that, which in my way of reading into things, and I'm real good at reading in and getting things really screwed up, is that he was not going to move beyond that or move forward with this, is that right? You were at that meeting. So, that's kind of where we're at with them. And
we would appreciate some clarification where the Forest Service stands on this.
Yeah, I mean, they can, I think the forest planner can help with explaining the process, because there are several steps.
Because we're looking at this as a separate avenue of attack against the county from a different source, and we don't want to get caught.
Yeah, and I'm only speaking for Greenland, so if these designations or these conversations have to do with state, private, BLM, I don't know anything about it, or their process.
Let's see if I can wrap my head around this. Scenic and wild and scenic rivers is part of the forest revision. But what the Wilderness Society and Heinrich and Udall are trying to do is circumvent that process and create their own designation of what scenic and wild rivers is, which if they get that in, then the Forest Service has to take that legislation into consideration, and then it's implemented into the forest plan.
And their plan actually provides more leeway for them to take over more land than through any Forest Service plan.
But if they have that legislation, then the Gila Forest revision, the planning, has got to incorporate that legislation.
That's the way we're reading it.
Okay, got it.
Mr. Chairman, there's actually several methods of getting a wild and scenic rivers designation. A state can do it and request recognition from the federal government of that designation. A local government can do the same and request recognition. Or you can have an actual congressional act that makes the designation. There is no real administrative designation. The Forest Service or BLM or any other federal land agency with a river segment going or a stream segment going through it can do the evaluation and make a recommendation to Congress, much like the way the Wilderness Act performs. So it's really a congressional act that either formally designates or recognizes a state and local government designation.
So do we have anything in our land use plan regarding wild and scenic rivers? I know our land use plan is in dire need of updating, but do we have anything like that in our land use plan?
I believe the land use plan has opposition to any designations of wild and scenic rivers.
So that is something we can use from a local perspective as far as it's in our land use plan.
But the scary thing is that this going to Congress, becoming part of a omnibus bill, and they're looking at the big things, and they pass this bill that affects Catron County, and we really had no say in it at all. That's what we're worried about.
Sure. Yes.
But we will have more for you after next Tuesday.
Good egg.
Go to the next one. Wolf concerns.
I've included in your packets the email from Coy Griffin dealing with wolf concerns. It's going to be right after the yellow tab, I think, is the way I did it. And I apologize. Next time I will have numbers and I'll have real tabs. But anyway.
I thought Coy was going to be here to give a presentation.
Coy doesn't directly contact me, so I really don't know. But
Did you get on the agenda because of the letter? You put him on the agenda?
no, I put it on the agenda.
Okay.
Bucky had called and talked to me about a concern with that. My concern with Mr. Griffin is not that he's concerned about the wolf. We're all concerned about the wolf. I'm concerned that the county is being misrepresented as doing nothing about the wolf. And I would like for Mr. Griffin to explain that part to us. And the fact that we haven't explored many of these avenues that he's expressing in here as a new idea has already been explored and tried. And it doesn't mean that we shouldn't try it again. And it doesn't mean that we shouldn't grab onto this. Mr. Griffin's has this Cowboys for Trump thing going. And he's generated quite a bit of publicity through this. And he's utilizing that. I don't know if this can be used to our advantage in any way. I agree with him wholeheartedly that we need to do something about it. But to say that we're not trying and that we haven't attempted is the wrong thing. Now, Commissioner Hand came up with an idea which I think is very important. And another reason that I put this on, she mentioned this at one time in a conversation, and I thought, it's a great idea. Let's come up with our own MOU to give to the Game and Fish Department, as well as the Forest Service, everybody else involved, as to our position, and have them sign an MOU with us, which they may refuse, but it would be taking a step, and it has nothing to do with what we did last week. We were going to their table to express our opinion. Well, let's take it to their table and say, here's our memorandum of understanding with how the wolf is affecting our county, the individuals within our county, and what we think should be done. Now, they can choose not to be a part of that, but at least it's something out there. I thought that would be a good first step.
Well, we had had that discussion with them when we signed the MOU, is that we signed the MOU that all the other agencies and all the other counties have signed, but we implement our own because we're gonna be impacted different than Sierra County or different than parts of Arizona County because we are the bullseye, the wolf program. So we have our own, so we would have 2 MOUs with Fish and Wildlife Services. And so we come to the table with them, we sit down and say, okay, we chose to not do an MOU when this first came out. We're at a point where we have to, we sign it, but we also have this MOU where we have certain criteria that we think needs to be met, such as you've designated your area for the wolf. And we won't, we get that they can be on public land, but the minute they step foot on private land, it's a different ballgame. They're no longer protected, or whatever the case may be. Then if they refuse to, it puts them in a corner to where if they refuse to sign it, then we can say, hey, we met with them, we sat at the table with them, but they chose to leave. Rather than us rescinding the last MOU or not doing anything further. And in reality, an MOU doesn't do anything. An MOU is just a piece of paper. It does absolutely nothing. It may get just the equipment that he needs, which just needs that, but signing the MOU to get that piece of equipment is nothing sort of extortion in my opinion. So I think that that's something that the lawyers should probably work on a MOU, and we need to figure out what our criteria is. What do we expect from them?
So with your direction, I would be glad to work with our law firm to come up with an idea and some type of MOU to present towards you at the next meeting.
How is that?
Jess had a lot of good stuff he wrote.
Okay.
He understands this program better.
I would definitely say he would be a great resource for that.
He understands what they've done better than anybody.
You know, Mr. Chairman,
So let's see what you come up with.
as Bill Green said in the letter, Commissioner Griffin from Otero County was talking about what he felt were new ideas. But as far as the legality of them introducing these rules, I think that was challenged several times by groups and people previously. And I think there's an array of people that have tried to come up with ideas to, make them take care of these things. But the long and the short is there was a group of people that were formed from different agencies that were going to try to facilitate some reimbursement back to people for their losses. And it really, in the end, they didn't pay anything to anybody. And the truth is, in my opinion, is that they're going to burn their budgets up every year, and they're not going to help these people with the losses of their livestock. They're not going to give them any money. The other point too is kind of what do they do to try and manage these things out here? I'm told that they turn off this equipment at 6 o'clock at night, and the wolves have a free hand all night long, like Mr. Holsey. How many years now have we waited for Jess to get this telemetry equipment? And they sit here and they demand everything from us, but they promise nothing. And I'll say one more thing, and then I'll shut my mouth. We have people out there that have an agreement, a legitimate legal binding agreement with the BLM and the Forest Service and the state, and they have paid a price to have that agreement to run their livestock on these federal lands. So that has some sort of bearing on, as they say, the other stakeholders outside of the area. these livestock producers, they have some responsibility to those people. So I'll go along with Bill, having our attorneys write an MOU. I'd like Anita's thoughts. We do that and put it in their ballpark. And, you know, I'd be willing to bet some money with anybody that wants to bet that they're going to stumble and fall apart and not.
In looking at all of the stuff that Corey wrote, he states in here that there has to be a state and county collaboration, which really is cooperation. Before the wolf was released with an MOU already in place, Catron County refused to sign the MOU. So that argument is out of place. I mean, we can't go back and say, well, you didn't sign an MOU with the county, when the county says, we're not signing it, we don't want them. The only thing that I can find that we might be able to go back to the Forest Service on with this, nothing in here that Corey said was something that brought me to this thought. It was just looking at the whole NEPA process. During the NEPA process, they came to the county and they said the wolf being released in Catron County will bring no economical impact. In fact, it will bring economic profit to the county because people are going to come far and wide to the wolf's house. That was there. That was either way. I'm reading my notes and talking at the same time. So that there was no fair, honest analysis on the economic impact, which violates NEPA. And they're still not admitting that there's an impact, economic impact. So that is the only thing that I can come up with that Fish and Wildlife has violated when they brought this to the county. Other than that, all these other arguments here, they've already been tried, they've already been addressed. The county has either said, we're not going to sign that MOU, we don't want them. That is the only thing that I can come up with is they said there is no economical impact, and they did not have a fair, honest analysis, which is a violation of the process.
I know a lawyer, I'll talk to him.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's what it would take. You'd have to hire a lawyer. And go through 5 or 6, 10 years of litigation.
They're going to be around, they're young.
And maybe you prove
It's already budgeted.
maybe you prove they violated it, so they have to go back and redo it. I don't see that you gain anything.
It doesn't matter what we do. We can absolutely do nothing, and they're not going to do anything, or we can go down fighting, and they're still not going to
Well,
do anything.
I guess I won't say that on record, never mind.
But having but coming up with a violation of the NEPA process is a way to bring attention to it. It's not going to do anything to wolves. They're here. They even said at the beginning, once we get 100 wolves on the landscape, there's not going to be a way to stop them. The killing will get worse. And with what we've had so far, they've been correct with that analysis. Once there's more than 100 on the landscape, we're not going to be able to control the wolves. And they've proven that.
Mr. Chairman, we have litigated that NEPA issue.
Oh, you have?
Not only the economic impact, but the health, safety, and welfare issues, particularly looking at mental health impacts, psychological impacts. The courts are fairly lazy, and if they can find an issue to hang a decision on before they get to the NEPA, if they do it. We've had 2 separate cases where those NEPA issues were raised, and the failure to do a proper economic and sociological impact analysis. And it was stated earlier, I think Mr. Green pointed this out, you, or maybe Chairman pointed it out, you win on a NEPA Administrative Procedures Act violation, and they go back and they do it over, and it doesn't guarantee that they will do it correct the second time.
Mr. Chairman, I say we write the MOU like Commissioner Hand said, and if they fail to comply or they don't take the next step, whatever that is.
Yeah, we have something, this is what we believe. Nothing wrong with putting all that together.
We'll make it
Makes your
happen.
arguments better. All right, I think we're down to action items. Move right along. Take a break or get started.
Some of these should actually go pretty quick.
Anybody want to take a break? All right, consideration of approval of Glenwood Tavern liquor license.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, this is just a transfer of license within family members, nothing specific. It's just within the Shellhorn family.
Huh?
But we still have to approve as they move,
Oh, I already have it.
change of name.
Yes, well, all we're doing is approving and you're signing a paper saying that it's okay.
It's just going from one to another with an LLC,
It's not leaving the county.
No.
semantics.
Before we sign off, Adrian, Kathy, when I changed a name within our family, there was some process, but is that all on the license, only to do that through the state?
There was a process, they went through it, this is the last step.
That's correct. We just have to approve.
Yeah.
I make a motion, we approve the changing of the name of
The transferring of the,
I'd like to second
motion and a second to approve this.
Right.
Who made the motion?
Cliff made the motion, Becky seconded, and I just had a question. Have they already done all their hearings and their public stuff, or does that happen after?
that's all been done and been approved by the state.
All right.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All right, we've got a consideration of financial consultant contract.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we have in the past had, I'm not for sure how long, have had a financial consultant contract with Mr. Robert Abdabali. He's done a very good job for us, but at this time, things are changing. He's running for a congressional seat. I don't think he's really interested in doing a part-time thing for us, and so I would just like a vote of thanks and to make sure that you guys are aware of that, and that will probably end with this calendar budget. I've talked to Robert about it.
So we just need a motion to accept his,
Well,
or the motion to not renew the
a
contract?
motion to not renew the contract.
Well, I'm sorry.
I didn't know, so.
Oh, no. The other part about it was, the other addition to this was the offer by Paul Ludi to do a little bit of teaching, or whatever the county needs. And if that's something that teaching or spend a day or two, it's not for, he's a full-time employee, so he would not do very much. But if it's something that the county can use, then the county can authorize Bill to engage that as he needs. But it's,
I still have that as a line item in the budget.
Correct.
So I mean, we could utilize that still.
Absolutely, and that's what I think Paul had offered his services, if it's something that the county's, and the Board of County Commissioners is interested in utilizing. But that's a question for.
As long as he comes here and the staff doesn't go there. I'm not comfortable with the staff going to see the county.
Well, I think that can be something that we work out in the future as we see what our needs are. I just wanted to have a finality with this and be able to write a letter to Robert thanking him for this time.
Yeah, he's moving on. We need to move on. I think we need somebody, we've got to get somebody trained to take care of the financial stuff, keep up with it. Paul Ludi is very good and he's willing to teach anybody, do anything he can to help us. Now we're going to have Connie doing quarterly report, she could probably use some help. I think Paul would be more than happy.
I have no problem
Walk her
utilizing,
through it.
I have no problem utilizing Paul, especially if, as you know, we have, our system is up for renewal. We'll either be renewing with Triadic or picking a new system. If we go, especially if we ended up going with Tyler or something like that, Paul would be extremely helpful. So I do not, I have no problem with having Paul as a consultant as needed.
So if the board's okay, I mean, I guess that there'd be two actions, is one to approve the tying things up with Mr. Apodaca, and two, to allow, give the manager the blessing if he still wants to utilize Paul.
So we need to make that two motions.
So it would be two motions.
So we need a
Up to the
motion.
board, though. It would certainly be small, it would already be under the manager's purchasing power and as well as, authority, but it's up to the board to really give the blessing about it.
Just need to tie up loose ends with Robert, send him a letter of appreciation,
And we're not, it's a non-renewal of the contract.
and a non-renewal. Do I have a motion for that?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Got a motion and a second. Letter of appreciation and non-renewal of contract for Robert. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Then we need a motion
Motion
to bring,
to allow us to have a contract with Mr. Ludi as a financial consultant as needed.
What are you gonna, what does he charge or?
Well, I would negotiate that with him and bring that to you guys.
so we can just negotiate it.
So just for a purpose of putting this on the record, does DFA provide training as well? Because I know that has been brought up, that DFA, why can't we use DFA? Are they in a position to properly train our staff?
See, now,
or
we've
is it-
actually been in contact with DFA, and DFA is going to probably fill most of the needs that we think we need.
Okay. So,
They'll send somebody down for free.
Yeah.
so the option's gonna be either DFA or using Mr. Lee? Okay.
I think DFA would be the first choice, if they're available.
Free is always good.
For free. That's the problem, DFA is a little bit confused right now with the whole transfer of administration, so.
But they have been very, very helpful, haven't they, Joyce?
Yes.
What I think, where I really think Paul would become very useful is if we switch to Tyler. I'm just saying, if we did, that he uses that, is very, and has utilized it very well, and might need him for that.
So, I'm okay with all of this, but I think that maybe the two that are gonna be working with the budget should chime in if they have any concerns or questions or stomp your feet. I absolutely refuse to work with either one of them. Stephanie, anything like that?
I think we need to work with both of them, that's my opinion. DFA, because the reports go directly to DFA. Questions right now, honestly, if I hadn't gone up and had some training with Paul, I don't think we could have got the supporting schedules done. So that helped. I think we need to take advantage of both of them. That's my opinion.
And Paul, I talked with Paul a little bit before he left, and he did say that, he's willing to, help us out and do stuff like that. I don't think it needs to be on a contractual level, though. I think he's just willing to help. I mean, I don't know, that's just.
Mr. Chairman, that was my understanding as well. Is
Yeah,
that
it's
just
just-
to help.
He's just willing to help, but not actually be contracted with the county.
Now, one of the things he did say in his presentation that really stuck out with me is he had mentioned the internal controls, that only those that deal with the budget should have access to changing anything within that LB something.
And I think that we should make,
And that everybody else is just read-only, and I really think that needs to be in place.
I agree with
Yeah.
that, but I also like the fact that any of you could
Yes.
look on there and just see the whole thing. So if you have questions, because I really believe in transparency.
Me too. And if we get an email that says, hey, Becky went in and made a change, well, if it's something that's not transparent, well, then we can say, what are you doing? Why are you giving your line item at solid waste $100,000 more dollars, you know? I think it's only a smart.
Oh, you know.
It's only a smart thing.
Yeah, well, we can do that.
Can I?
No, I liked that idea too. I mean, I just thought it was a good idea.
Really has worked.
I, personally, I don't care who does what. I mean, my thing is I feel like we're very behind in our budget process. And for me, and I don't keep, like, I guess Connie's left, he feels, but we plan ahead for what we have to do and what we need to do. We didn't have a budget at all last year. And I just want somebody to do something. So we have a budget. I know what I can do. I know what, I need a person to go to. If it's Becky, if it's Joyce, I don't care. I think Paul would be very good because he was here before. He knows our system. He knows, you know, how things have worked in Catron County. I don't care if it's DFA. I don't care if it's Paul. I don't care who does it. I would just like us to be a little further ahead than what we are. I think we're better than this. I think that I don't want DFA to come in here. That gives us a black eye across the state. I think that we just need to get on board and get somebody trained to do that. And nothing against Becky or Joyce or anybody. That's just my personal feeling is I don't care who does it. I just would really like for it to be done.
I don't think there's anybody within the county that would not want the budgets to be further ahead. We all have dealt with the frustrations of not having the budgets where we want them to be, but the previous manager that was handling it left us a mess. And I
It's
will just,
been a year and
it was that big of a mess.
I'm not buying that. I think we should have had this worked out before the year's been. I mean, we've known this was coming. And so you can only blame so far back.
I agree with you on that, but it was a mess, and we can both agree that it was a mess. How far back it goes is
Well, we're
debatable,
still
and it's an
using one
opinion.
from 17, am I correct?
But they're getting to where they need to be. And I think Becky and Joyce have done a great job in getting it moved forward to where we at least know what's in there, and they're fixing some of the mistakes that were made in the past. And Rome wasn't built overnight. It's going to take them a while to get it fixed. And I think they're on track to get it there.
I would just like to say that, yeah, I don't think the rest of the departments are understanding that we are getting there, and we have come a long way, and we do have a budget. We're not working off the 17-18 budget. We do have a budget. We're just trying to pull it together, and then the departments you can get, we have them. We'll give them out to you. I think we're not being given enough credit for getting to where we're at. I think it's the assumption that everything's behind, but we're really not behind. We've got the interim budget in, so with what we've been given, I'm sorry, I think we've done a good job.
I'm not saying that you haven't. I don't misunderstand. I'm just saying that we had a budget meeting and nothing happened. And then when I try to find out questions, when I ask questions, I don't feel like I'm maybe where I need to be. And so I don't know what I can plan on to do for the next year. So I'm not bad-mouthing you or Joyce or anybody. I'm just saying, I just think we need to get something with some process in place. And if that's training or if that's whatever, I don't care. I just would like us to get that worked out. And I mean, I just think
it's gone through so many hands that there is a frustration level, but I do believe we're on the right track.
So in order to keep moving, because the agenda is long, I move to approve the use of either DFA or Paul Ruby at the discretion of those handling the budgets.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman. Got a motion and a second, all in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Okay, this is a motion for consideration of approval of ordinance 002-2019, amending the county gross receipts tax. That's the one we talked about last time.
Yeah.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, this last legislative session, the legislature de-earmarked certain of our GRT increments, so that so that the board would no longer be required to spend them on those purposes for which they were originally dedicated. What you have before you is a draft amendment to the GRT increment reflecting the de-earmarking and allowing its use for general county purposes. If approved, the board would then be permitted to use these particular GRT revenue for any necessary or any needs of the county generally, and not as originally indicated.
So we can move, that's what we talked about, moving the GRT out of the ambulance fund and putting it in for, correct? Okay.
That's correct. And Mr. Chairman, I apologize for my my lack of memory with respect to where we stand in this process. Normally what we would have is we would have a public hearing. Did we already have that on this item or no?
No, we just had a.
So what we're going to ask then at this time is for the direction of the title or the publication of the title and general subject matter of the ordinance. So if this board directs the...
Didn't we publicize?
We did do that, we just.
We did publicize that.
Yeah, we can now approve it.
We don't have the
What's that?
public hearing.
You can approve it.
Did we have a public
No,
hearing?
we've not had our public hearing on the item.
We
So,
posted, but no public hearing.
Mr.
Sorry,
Chair-
4:30. I don't believe it's required though.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I would suggest this. If nothing else, it's a matter of practice. This board has public hearings on all ordinances. So, I guess I'd like to see the legal notice. We can table this item, and I can get with Becky or Joyce and get a copy of the legal notice that was published, and see if it was published for, if notice was published for a public hearing at this meeting. If so, then we'll proceed with the public hearing here today. If not, then we'll have them republished for public hearing at our next commission meeting. Yeah, so yeah, I'll if you, Mr. Chairman, I'd ask that you table this item for just or just move along, not table it, but move along on to the next item, and I'll visit with Linda here and see if I can get my hands on that legal notice, figure out what to do today. Thank you.
Motion to set it aside or just move on?
Just move on.
Consideration of approval of resolution 065-2019 authorizing the submission of the New Mexico Community Development Block Grant application. What's that?
This is dealing with the parking lot for the clinic. And Stantec is working on the engineering work where we have a grant from the Colonials project that's going to fund this.
I don't have any questions on it. I move to approve resolution 065-2019.
And I'll second that, Mr. Chairman. This is just an application, whether it's funded.
Yes, we're gonna, well, I mean, we will have to come up with a match for part of it, but it's a good thing for the county. Paving the parking lot, getting the water running in the correct way, overflow stuff.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Got a motion and a second to approve resolution 065-2019. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carried. Next one is approval of resolution 066-2019.
This one's mine, Mr. Chairman. This is part of, this is something we do every election season anyway, but now with the passage of 407 in the last legislature with the emergency clause, it's kicked in already, and that changes the way we do it and the timing that we do it. So now we have to issue this designating the polling sites for the next 2 years, basically, along with the appointment of the Board of Registration. And so it changed the rules of the appointment of the Board of Registration as well. I still appoint 3 members, and I still have Republicans and Democrats on it. So that's what this is, and it's just for your approval.
And the locations, Keith, are basically the same?
Also, all locations are the same. The only difference is, which we did last month, is to designate EBA as an all-mail ballot precinct. I spoke with the people out there, and my board, of course, was, oh, but they also said, yeah, it makes sense. So they're understanding. And the rules of that require I send a notice to them all 45 days before the election, notifying that they will receive a ballot unless they write me back and say, I'll vote that precinct. Or I'll vote that.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we pass 066-2019.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve resolution 066-2019, designating location of election day polling places. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Item F, approval of resolution 067-2019. Road fund investment match waiver.
Okay, this is the project that we went and made a presentation for the special money. It's for a bridge on the St. John's Road. The road connects St. John's and Kamado. And we have a bridge that's been condemned up there.
Is it the one-way? The only one-way access?
It's, well, we have a bridge up there. It's right past, it's right past where the road turns from Salt Lake towards Fence Lake, and then goes, the other one goes to St. John's. And it's about 5 miles down the road, right, if I'm correct. And the bridge has been condemned. And replacing it is not something that the county can do, so we jumped at the opportunity to these funds. And we presented for both the District 6 and District 1. District 6 placed it on their #1 priority. District 1 placed it as #3. So between the two, I think we're going to get the project. And so we're going to be putting in a $600,000 to $800,000 bridge project. Right now, if during the rainy season and stuff, people cannot come through. So you have to go all the way around through St. John's, Arizona, Springerville and stuff just to get to Kamado, or vice versa, the other way for parts of our county. So it's a pretty important bridge.
And we just have to put up 5% of the cost?
Yes. And we've actually applied for the waiver. We might actually get a waiver and not even have to pay that. So I would resoundingly suggest that we pass this.
I move to approve resolution 067-2019.
Motion and a second to approve resolution 067-2019.
And just for your information, in the future, we do have a bridge on the Bill Knight Gap Road. I mean, not the Bill Knight Gap Road.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's Starkweather. What's it called?
Trout Creek.
Trout Creek. Yeah, went across it yesterday. That's going to be the next one project that we'll try to get federal funding for, or state funding, because that will be probably as expensive or more because of the terrain.
I got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Resolution 06729 carries. 2019.
Mr. Chairman, Commission members, items G through M, all of these deal with moving funds towards the project dealing with Greens Gap Road. You can pass these all together, or if you want to go through each one of them, you can. But each one of those are dealing with state DOT funds that are going to be dedicated towards that project.
Which ones are those?
Item G through item M. M.
There was nothing in there that was that you had any concerns about. I think we passed
We,
these
we,
last
we,
year.
yeah, we're, it's just a redo because we're doing this year, it's a new year,
Like a renewal.
basically.
Okay.
So,
I move to approve Resolution 068-2019, 069-2019, 070-2019, 071-2019, 072-2019, 073-2019, and 074-2019 that all pertain to the road projects, which are simply a renewal from last fiscal year to this fiscal year.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
That's a good one to repeat.
I don't think he has to
Just say ditto.
I said 08, I said 08 through 74.
Yeah, motion to accept these items all together, 06829 down through 074-2019. This has to do with Greens Gap Road. Because we have a new year. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion's carried. Consideration of approval of resolution 075-2019, disposition of obsolete, worn out, unusable tangible personal property.
Mr. Chairman, we are going to have Christmas in July, here on the 13th of July, and I would hope everybody comes there with their pocketbooks full, because we're gonna sell some really cool stuff.
That does not work, it needs repair, it does not work.
One man's treasure, one man's whatever, but we have submitted to the state auditor, Mr. Chairman, and received approval. We just need your approval to have the auction.
I make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we pass 076-2019.
Second.
So this doesn't include a bulldozer?
It does not include a bulldozer.
Okay.
The fire truck or two, I think.
This is just all the stuff that's...
Mark wouldn't let me. Only thing I wanted to bid on, he wouldn't let me.
All right, we got a motion and a second to accept resolution 075-2019. All in favor?
Well, you have a list.
Yes,
It's in there, it's in our packet.
it's actually in your packet, and it's available online for anybody, and if they can't get it online, if they call the office, I'll gladly print them one out.
Bargain basement Bob wanted to know what collectible.
Oh, there's some real collectibles, definitely, if you like fire hose.
I don't know what you do.
Collectible.
Weird. Just a lot of junk, all right. Next item, consideration of approval of award of invitation for bid for road material.
We had a bid put out to produce gravel for this Green Grass Road project. Yesterday, we had 2 bidders. Where's Linda?
She went with Dave to get the legal notice for the first ordinance.
Because I think she has the folder.
Swap.
You didn't have the folder.
Didn't leave it here.
Gravel bid at $18 per ton, and swap construction bid $14.80 per ton. So we are telling you the low bid is $14.80, and we would suggest that you accept that.
It's the only choice we have.
We could buy a crusher and have our own.
What's this amount to? Crushed gravel or?
This is gravel, we're gonna have crushed to use on the Green Gap Road project.
What's, go ahead, I'm sorry.
That's just for the material.
Yes.
What's comments ABC on the Russell Sand and Gravel?
Well, actually, we had several different addendums that were part of that, and they
That was
really
just
didn't-
my marking letting me know that they were there.
Okay.
The packets, both packets were complete.
Now, it will be up to them, they bid on that, it will be up to them they have to find a pit within a 20-mile radius there. And I think both companies have been in contact with pit ownership, or people to utilize to produce the rock. I cannot verify where they're going to use it.
So once they make the bid, they gotta meet all the requirements.
Right.
All right, consideration.
Move to approve awarding, do I give authority to?
Award the low bidder.
Award the low bidder. That's easy.
Got a motion and a second to accept the low bid on the gravel for the East Gap Road. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Consideration of approval for change of operation days on Dattle Way site from 4 days to 3 days per week.
Mr. Chairman, it has been researched. We have determined that keeping up on 4 days, even at different hours, less number of hours, was still going to produce a negative result. And considering what we're doing at other waste sites across the state, it's our opinion that we move it from 4 days to 3 days per week.
I do have a question. If we, so what days, after the change, assuming we approve it, what days will they be open?
Monday, Thursday, and Saturday.
Okay, so Monday, Thursday, and Saturday. We're already taking one day away. Would you be amenable to consider moving Monday to Tuesday? Because if we have a holiday, then the restaurants they can dump on Saturday, but then they can't dump again until Thursday if Monday falls on a holiday. Does that make any sense?
Mark and I have no problem with that, it's up to the commission.
You know the area better than we do. So I'm fine with whatever you decide.
I just think if you keep it open on Monday, keep that day there, and we take away a day, there's gonna be complaints during the holidays, because it's gonna be a length of time.
How many holidays are we looking at?
I don't know, it seems like we have one every month.
Probably 4, maybe holidays.
But, I don't know, it's just a thought. I mean, I don't think it'll make that big of a deal, but there's always gonna be that one that complains. Move it to Tuesday?
I'm okay with whatever the commission decides.
I'm okay with that, I don't know what you do.
Well, that's your area.
I move that we approve the change of operation Dattle Way site from 4 days to 3 days. Maybe they can work out the holiday thing.
You can go ahead and make that part of the motion if you want. Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday.
I'll make that part of the, make it Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday.
I second that.
Got a motion to do days from 4 to 3, 3 days open in Dattle, be on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And a second, all in favor?
All right.
Aye. Motion carries. Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Consideration of approval.
Oh, wait, we can't change that.
Oh, no, you're fine, you're good. Mr. Chairman, if I could interrupt real fast and ask the board to bring back up that item of 10C, the consideration of approval of ordinance 002-2019. Ms. Fick and I had an opportunity to review the notice that was provided to the paper, and I'm going to request that this board redirect the publication of the title and general subject matter of the ordinance so we can publish for a public hearing to be held at the next county commission meeting and final action be taken at that time. And for the purpose of the item itself, the rededication wouldn't take effect until January of 2020 under any circumstances anyway, given that we're required to provide that 30 days or 90 days in advance of either July 1 or January 1 for it to take effect following that time. So it doesn't delay it, we just need to republish that, the title and general subject matter of that ordinance.
We didn't do anything on that, so you want us to make a motion that we
That we republish the title and general subject matter of that ordinance and schedule it for public hearing. Next county commission.
That's ordinance
2019? Make a motion that, or I move to republish the dedication of the county gross receipts tax and schedule public hearing
That's perfect, thank you.
For our next meeting.
For our next meeting.
for next
Ron,
meeting.
second that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, got a motion and a second to resubmit the publication.
That's right.
An open meeting at the next, public meeting at the next
County commission meeting. Yep.
county commission. All right. I think we got it. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, Commissioners.
Motion carried. Okay, now we can go to,
I would ask that, Mr. Chairman, I would ask that you table item Q. They did not get prices and information into, for that purpose, and just ask for you to table that until the July meeting.
Move to table the purchase of the defibrillator for the Luna ambulance until they come up with the pricing for said purchases.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
got a motion and a second. Set this aside till the next meeting.
Thank you.
All right.
Huh?
All in favor?
Defibrillator? And I don't know how fancy the people are around 20,000.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Set it aside till next meeting. Consideration of approval of vehicle purchase for appraiser to replace auction vehicle.
Mr. Chairman, we have a kind of a unique situation and actually need to maybe get some clarification from legal services. The appraisers have a vehicle that they can't use off-road. The commission has a vehicle that they don't want to drive. And so we're going to auction off the Dodge Caliber, which is a commission vehicle, and give the proceeds of that to the appraisers to use in their purchase of a new vehicle that would better suit their needs. They have a vehicle in line and they have the funds to purchase that now. We would just transfer our funds to them after the sale is complete for the Dodge Caliber. Is that okay?
Certainly, and Mr. Chairman, you can give that direction now, and then it will also come back in the form of a budget adjustment resolution, because the money will come in and you'll have to show where it goes.
Okay. But we would like for them to be able to purchase that now. They have the funds available.
That would work, and so that would be a good approval.
So we just have to take the Dodge money for the Dodge and then put it back in.
And we'll put it back in their fund. all $312.
Yeah, it's probably right.
Well, there's 3 vehicles. We're auctioning off the tractor, the Trailblazer, and then the Caliber. And then we're gonna get the Ford Explorer, which I think is in your packets. And it's on the lot, it's ready to go because Bill wants that other vehicle right away.
Actually, I made copies, but I don't think, I must have gotten distracted. You saw me make the copies. I blame it on the appraiser, Mr. Chairman.
We're getting a Ford Explorer. It's a 2019, they have it on the lot, ready to go, 4-wheel drive. And then Bill's taking the Traverse, which is, it's a nice vehicle, it's a really nice vehicle.
It will work great for us going down the
It
highway,
just-
but it doesn't
it
work
just
for them
can't.
off-road.
Yeah, it's so low. It's impractical for us.
Welcome to Frontier Living.
Sir,
So we need to approve the purchase. of
Just
the-
for the purchase of theirs, that's all.
I make a motion, we approve the purchase of the vehicle for the session.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Approval of checks and registers.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve checks and registers. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Take a break.
Probably a good idea.
Little motion.
Do you have to have a motion to go
we're going
into
to
it
an
though?
executive session first. and-
Yeah, let's do that. Everybody can.
I move that we go into an executive session to discuss only the items that are on the agenda.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Got a motion, we need a roll call vote to go into executive session and pursuant to New Mexico State Statute 215-1, only the items listed will be discussed. All in favor?
Aye.